for Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024 to order. Dave, can you please call the roll?
Alternate Commissioner Salmieri.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Gaida.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Ma.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Caird.
Here.
Commissioner Tedesco. Commissioner Sewell.
Here.
Commissioner Coles.
Present.
Commissioner Britton.
Here.
Commissioner Chaplinsky.
Here.
Vice Chair Walowski.
Here.
And Chair Hammersley.
Hammersley's obviously here. I'll see Commissioner Gaida in place of Commissioner Tedesco. We do have a quorum. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. And I'll remain standing for a moment of silent reflection, please. All right, thank you. All right, looking for a motion for minutes from our last meeting on November 19th of 2024. Commissioner Walowski,
So moved.
we have a motion, we have a second. Commissioner Gaida with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Number 7, Commissioner discussion. Any Commissioner comments, thoughts, subcommittee actions, anything? Nothing? Okay. Chairman comments, the only thing I'll just bring up is that there was a meeting of the chairs that was held last Thursday. It was preceded by a tour of the former Bank of America building out on Main Street, just to get a look at the interior of that building, which became a topic at that meeting. The consensus seems to have been, and this is really, I think, more of a town council issue to address, is to take down the drive-in area at about 8 spaces, which is included as part of the Plan of Conservation Development that was adopted in 2016 that we're currently living under, and then probably try to turn that building around to somebody, because the age of the facility and the interior of that facility is quite a challenge from several engineering and construction perspectives. But again, that's up to the town council, I think, to decide what they're going to end up doing with that building. Should we be the entity that prevails in the purchase of it? But other than that, there was most of the discussion was on budget stuff, which we don't really play a part in here. I did bring to their attention the regulations that we had proposed that are on tonight's public hearing agenda, to let them know what we were doing with that. Didn't get any questions or comments on that, but I do want to let them know that. But other than that, there was nothing else. And then I'll just use this time to read my preamble, right? Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Southington Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Bob Hammersley. I'm the chairman of the commission, and I want to take a few moments to explain the meeting format. Aside from administrative items, tonight's meeting is comprised of 2 parts, a public hearing and a business meeting. During the public hearing, an applicant will present the application to us in detail, which will allow the commission members and the public an opportunity to better understand what is being proposed. The commission members may ask questions during the presentation as needed. Then we'll ask members of the public who support or oppose the application to speak. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, wait to be recognized by myself. Once recognized, come forward to the podium up here, state your name and address for the record, and address all comments directly through myself and not to the applicant or other members of the public. Be advised that this is the only opportunity to ask questions or make comments on an application, because once a public hearing is closed, no additional testimony from the public or the applicant will be permitted. It's important to maintain order and decorum at all times during the meeting, which I'm pretty stringent on. I also would ask that any comments be directed directly at the application and not on anything that has to do outside of that application, just for try to be as succinct as possible, to put it succinctly. After everyone's had a full opportunity to speak, all questions have been answered and all information has been received, we will decide whether it's appropriate to close the hearing. Once we will not consider voting on an application until the business meeting portion of the agenda. During the business meeting, the commission will deliberate on an application submitted to the commission and may decide how to act on it. Commission has 4 options. 1, to approve an application as submitted. 2, approve it with stipulations, conditions, or modifications. 3, table the action for a future meeting, or in some cases, the fourth option is to deny an application. 4 affirmative votes on the commission are generally required to approve any application during the business meeting of, or business portion of our meeting. Only members of the commission, seated members of the commission, I should say, to be clear, are allowed to partake in that discussion. There's no comments that are allowed from any member of the public or the applicant for that matter. If you have to leave before a decision is rendered, you can call the planning department, Dave LaValle, all the way down here on my left, tomorrow afternoon and get the results from tonight's meeting. And with that, we will move into the public hearings. Item number 9A, Hoist Real Estate LLC, petition to change the zoning district boundary from an R2025 to a Arch. Also includes a change from I-2 to R2025 for access strip at 65 Triano Drive, property located at 322 Lazy Lane. This is zone change 579. Steve, I'm going to assume that you want to do the other one in conjunction with this?
Mr. Chairman, if that'd be possible, I think it'd be best to keep them all into one public hearing.
I appreciate that. So also in this part, we'll take up item number 9B, which is also Hoist Real Estate LLC, a special permit application to construct an age-restricted housing development property located at 322 Lazy Lane, zoned R2025, SPU 707. Mr. Judas, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Stephen Judas with the Office of Cole Civil at 876 South Main Street in Plantsville. With me tonight is Frank Pilsey from Pilsey and Ryan, Attorney Pilsey, our applicant Ralph Hollist, and traffic engineer Scott Hesketh. I know that the commission has seen the ARC-Z applications previously, but I'm just going to go through really quick the process and what we're proposing to do and what we're going to present to you tonight. Our application is for a zone change to an ARC-Z from R2025 for this site here, which is outlined here. We also have included a small strip of zone change from I-2 to R2025, which is this piece right here. And the purpose for the ARC-Z change is to construct a 23-unit ARC-Z age-restricted multifamily housing complex on Lazy Lane. 3 steps in the process. We have the zone change to ARC-Z, which requires a public hearing. We have the special permit to allow, to consider the ARC-Z use for the property. Is it appropriate for this parcel to be used as an ARC-Z 55+ development, which also requires a public hearing. And we also have a site plan application that we submitted that gets into the kind of the nitty-gritty of the site itself, the grading, the utility connections, and things like that, which is considered under your regular meeting that is technically not part of the public hearing. As I mentioned, our applicant is Hollist, or I did not mention, but our applicant is Hollist Real Estate LLC. And the main portion, this piece and this piece, is owned by Hollist Real Estate LLC. This strip right here is owned by Triano Drive 65 LLC, which we did submit a letter of that owner granting us permission to submit these applications on their behalf. This strip of land is part of this larger parcel, which has frontage on Triangle Drive. It is cut off from the operation by a large body of wetlands. So this little strip is kind of useless from an I-2 perspective for that owner. The subject property for the ARC-Z is going to be this piece. It's part of these 2 parcels that equals 13 acres. Located on the north side of Lazy Lane, and that property is all zoned R2025. It's known right now as 322 Lazy Lane, or Assessor's Map 144, Parcel 15. As part of our application, we're proposing to label our development, the ARC-Z, as 205 Lazy Lane. That parcel has frontage at this location and at this location for a total of 289 feet of frontage. And the topography on this property generally slopes from the west to the east to a wetland parcel just off our property line to the east. The parcel is generally. I'm going to flip maps here real quick. So the light blue is I-2 zone property. The green is our subject ARC-Z proposed zone change. The purple is our 2025 property, and this yellow strip right here is I-2 that we're proposing to change to our 2025. Our parcel here that we're proposing to change to the ARC-Z is 7.51 acres, and this little piece right here to our 2025 is 0.93 acres. As I've mentioned already a couple times, but I repeat it in my outline here, is that our end goal is to construct a 23-unit ARC-Z 55-plus age-restricted multifamily development with detached units, including 3 workforce housing units. As you know, the ARC-Z zone is a floating zone that can be applied to R12, R2025, and R40 zones here in Southington. The purpose of this type of available housing, the purpose of this regulation is to increase available housing, different types of available housing, with an emphasis on privately developed common interest communities for seniors or people 55 or older, empty nesters, and so on. And it's also to protect natural resources, provide more green space, and for the regulation, provide flexibility in design for development. And we believe that we've followed those directives in this application. Per the requirements, as I mentioned, we're proposing to change 7.51 acres of property at this location for the ARC-Z application. I keep talking about this other strip of land here. This has nothing to do with the ARC-Z application or the proposal. It's really just part of this zone change map. Hollis Realty will, if this were to move forward, we would subdivide this into 2 parcels, and we would have remaining residential property, and they have an intent to purchase this from the owner, so we just felt to have continuity through the piece, we would have our 2025, and that would be for future standard our 2025 residential development for a couple of houses, 2 to 3 houses would be our end goal for the remaining land on this property. So it's kind of a housekeeping to include that. It did complicate my application a little bit. There was a neighbor that was not notified due to that strip. We missed it. That was the reason for requesting a continuance, reposting the meeting. We also sent letters to the neighbors identifying the fact that we would be holding this hearing tonight instead of the previous meetings. I was also in Aruba for your last meeting, so I couldn't make it for that one. But so the proposed ARC-Z zone change is accommodate the age restriction housing, and we believe that this is a good fit. It's a good transition between the established residential properties in this location and the I-2 zone property around it. We also, some of you may have been here, we did come in at one point to try to eliminate reduce a 50-foot buffer along this industrial piece. That request was denied, so we do have a well-established and recently planted 50-foot buffer along this property line here that provides a nice buffer, and as part of our application, we'll talk about 20-foot green space on our parcel on our side of that property line as well. As I mentioned earlier, the ARC-Z zone is an overlay zone, so it does not constitute spot zoning. You're allowed to put these zones anywhere that you see fit as a commission. Our proposal is similar to previous ARC-Z applications that this commission has seen and approved in the past. There were 27 units approved on Marion Avenue for Lovely development recently, 23 units on Meritorious Turnpike for DeNorfia Builders, another 15 on Pacer Lane for Lovely, and another 15 on South End Road for Lovely. I believe the South End Road was the first ARC-Z that this commission saw and granted approval on. So as you can see, there's a strong need for this type of housing in Southington, and it helps offset our affordable requirements. As part of the ARC-Z zone, we're required to provide a minimum of 10% affordable units in accordance with state of Connecticut guidelines for affordability. This development type is in high demand, and I think this commission saw that when they enacted this new regulation a few years back. And the other thing that's really important, your POCD encourages this type of development, and this would be in accordance with recommendations from the Plan of Conservation and Development. So our proposal for the age-restricted zone, I'm trying to see if I can reduce this. Nope. Try to get it all into one screen there. We are proposing to utilize 75 feet of frontage at this location on Lazy Lane. We would have a single driveway entrance that comes in and loops around the property and exits back through that location. We are proposing landscape islands and a proposed sign at the front of the location with additional street trees along this buffer to the residential driveway to the west. We have an industrial user to the east with a very large berm, landscaped berm on the westerly boundary of their property that provides landscaping and buffering from that property. We have a pull-off area here with a community mailbox for all the residents to retrieve their mail. We felt getting that off the road and into the site was best for traffic flow and safety reasons. We have recreational space proposed over in this corner of the property. We have picnic tables, a gazebo, and some community gardens. And we're proposing 2.2 acres of green space throughout the property around the perimeters and part of our required 20-foot buffer around the property includes some of that green space that's required. I believe 20% is required by the regulation. For privacy purposes, we're proposing some stockade fence sections and landscaping between these units here. These units are pretty well buffered along with the 50-foot easement or conservation easement in this area and then another 20-foot easement in this area. We do have a Connecticut Light and Power Company easement that runs through this piece, so we're limited as to what we can actually plant under that. CLMP does come in and clear that from time to time, but that's about a 150-foot easement that will remain in its natural state. So it'll provide a nice buffer. And we're proposing additional landscaping and buffering and berming along this property line, again, protection for the existing home to the south. Landscaping is proposed around the perimeter of the site, especially where the vegetation is light and we need some filler. We're proposing street trees throughout the site. You can kind of see these trees along the driveway and then all around in front of the homes, just like you would on any typical subdivision. Stormwater drainage is designed with LID features. That's low impact design that promotes infiltration and recharge of groundwater. We have infiltration strips proposed along the edges of the driveway. We have swales that also pick up water off the edges of the driveways and between the units. We have curbless roads that allow water to run into the grass areas and infiltrate through the grass. We have roof leader infiltration units proposed for each unit. There'll be a subsurface infiltration system to recharge groundwater with roof runoff, which is considered a good, clean recharge quality water. And then we have stormwater quality requirements in our detention basins per the DEP and your town regulations. We're required to provide stormwater quality storage in those basins on top of what we normally do for a zero increase in runoff. So we've done that as well. The storm design follows a natural path of runoff from the site, basically from the west to the east into a wetland that's just off our property to the east, I'm sorry. And as I mentioned with stormwater quality, our design provides 126% of the DEP required stormwater quality. So we're above and beyond what we're required to provide for stormwater quality. And that's something in accordance with the 2024 stormwater quality manual that the DEP has just enacted. Our drainage design also complies with ZIRO, which is something that this commission is familiar with. The town of Southington requires a zero increase in peak runoff over the property. And through all these infiltration mechanisms and our detention basins, we meet those requirements as well. Our units will be serviced by public sanitary sewer and water mains that would be come off of Lazy Lane and through our property. The water loops around and ties back into the proposed main, and then the sanitary kind of runs up on each road and runs out through our driveway out to the Lazy Lane. From a lighting perspective, we kind of kept lighting somewhat at a minimum. We have a few decorative pole lights that run along the roadway, and then typical house lighting would be all that we would propose on this site, just your normal front porch light with a street type of decorative street light. But we don't have any, and not proposing any encroachment over the property lines with our lighting. We have 3 different units that we're proposing. Scroll down. They're just identified as A1, B1, C1, and D1. Each unit will vary in color. We'll try to not have multiple units same color next to each other. It may happen here and there, but we'll definitely have a variety of colors on the site. Each unit will have a deck, patio, or a 3-season porch out the back, which we have detailed on the site plan. It really depends on what the topography is out back. If the grade permits, it'll be a patio or a sun porch or sunroom or a deck. We're proposing landscape areas, which you can kind of see in our little demonstration here, but we also, as part of our site plan set, we incorporated paver stone sidewalks and landscaping around the fronts of each unit to provide individual landscaping around our proposed units. Our affordable units will be scattered throughout the site. There'll be 3 of them. They will not be any different than the normal priced units. There will be no difference in the way they look or the sizes. They will basically just be exactly like the other units on the site. Each unit will have first floor bedrooms and a 2-car garage, and each driveway will accommodate 2 additional cars at a minimum. So technically, we could park 4 vehicles on each of these units if need be. The subject of visitor parking did come up during our comments. We thought that we had enough parking for each unit, almost double what we think we need. But there is some room for some visitor parking if the commission felt that that was something that would benefit the site. I think we have some room to stick some of that in there. Your requirements for this type of use call for a minimum parcel size of 5 acres. This proposal is for a total of 7.51 acres. The maximum units allowed per acre is 5, which would allow 37 units on this site. We're proposing 23 units at a ratio of 3.06 units per acre. So we're well below the threshold of what the regulation permits. The impervious coverage is allowed to be up to 50%, and we're at 32.8, almost 33%. So we're well below the 50% impervious coverage threshold. And the minimum frontage required is 75 feet, which we have just over 75 feet at this location. So we meet the frontage requirements for this use. The minimum conservation green space needs to be 20% overall, which is 1.5 acres. And the proposal includes 29%, about 2.2 acres of green space around the perimeter of the property and a little bit on the interior. As required, draft condominium documents and affordability plan has been submitted with the application. And a traffic study has also been prepared by Scott Hesketh. Scott is here, and I'll ask him to just give you guys a brief hit on what he came up with from a traffic perspective. We did receive staff comments from engineering and planning, which we did address and revise and submit revised plans. I do believe there's some outstanding water department comments that have not been addressed at this point. I think that that's something that's a kind of a site plan issue. So we can. I didn't see anything that is objectionable from our perspective, so we'd be happy to address those comments as soon as we can. I didn't realize that they were outstanding coming into tonight's meeting, but we went through them, and I think we were having conversations with the water department, but I misinterpreted, and I thought that they had been addressed already. I haven't spoke to Dave or Jim about our comment responses. I haven't heard from them in a couple of weeks, so I thought we were okay, but I'll let them comment on where they are with their comments. we believe this proposal has less impact on the environment than a traditional subdivision. We have less impervious surface. We have more green space that is controlled green space. This site will be controlled by a condominium association, and they will govern that the association follows our plan and leaves the green space intact moving forward. As with a subdivision, we don't necessarily have that ability, and people tend to clear their lots to the property lines. The town of Sullyton is not required to maintain any of the infrastructure on this site. The roadways, sewer, water, gas, anything that's on this site will all be privately owned and maintained. So there's no obligation from the town of Sullyton to maintain any of that infrastructure. It's also should be noted, I know it's not something that you guys really take into consideration when you're looking at these applications, but it should be noted that we don't anticipate school-age children living in this facility. It's regulation is 18 plus required here, so there wouldn't be any negative impacts to the school system from this proposal. I'm going to let Scott talk a little bit about traffic, but the elderly use is typically quite a low generator for traffic. And we believe that the proposal provides a needed housing for Sullyton residents. I hate to say elderly because I'm over 55, so I do not consider myself elderly yet, but you'll see a lot of people in the 65 to 75 age range moving into these types of units, so they don't have to mow their lawn, they don't have to snow plow, and they can still have a comfortable piece of property, a comfortable home to spend their golden years in. Of course, the design team thinks it's a good fit for the site, but that is ultimately your decision. And from our perspective, I believe that we've addressed, or we meet or exceed your regulations when it comes to this application before you. I'm going to ask Scott or Frank to just give you a few words, and then we'll answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Steve.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members, and staff. Franklin Pillacy, 235 Main Street, Watertown, and I'm an attorney at that address. And I'd just like to restate for the record, I think Steve's already mentioned this, but I'd just like to restate that in a zone change application of this nature, we have to make a statement for the record that this plan is in compliance or conformity with your plan of conservation and development, which we believe it is. It's the 2016 plan that I heard mentioned earlier. And on page 78, it talks about the need to address future housing needs, and specifically housing for an aging population. And there's a paragraph there that tells us that this is the type of housing that ought to be approved, and it does comply with your plan of development. So thank you. Scott?
Thank you, Franklin. Again, for the record, Scott Hesketh, traffic engineer with the firm of F.A. Hesketh and Associates. Our office is in East Granby, Connecticut, and I am the author of the Traffic Impact Report dated August 13th, 2024, which was revised to October 8th, 2024, which has been submitted as part of the record. I'll be brief because I think the traffic impacts of this proposed development are pretty de minimis. The proposed development is 24 units of age-restricted housing. In our report, we assumed they were regular single-family housing units, which has a higher trip generation rate. And even under that, the ITE suggests that we're looking at peak hour generation of about 271 trips on a daily basis, with a morning peak hour of about 20 trips and an afternoon peak hour of 26 trips. So if you take into account that these are age-restricted units, those volumes should be less than 20 peak hour trips for the development during both peak hours. And why our age-restricted housing units have less trips? Well, there's no children, so you're not driving back and forth to school to pick them up or take them to practices. You do less shopping. Age-restricted people, they have the ability to, a lot of them are retired. They don't have to go out during peak hours. They can adjust their travel trips during the day to account for when there's less traffic going on. And a lot of people in this age area tend to have two different houses, one in Florida, one up north. So a lot of the houses are vacant during much of the time, so that tends to drive the number of trips down for residential units. When we prepared our report, again, we looked at the Connecticut Department of Transportation's traffic volume counts. They had counts on Lazy Lane and Curtis Street, which were conducted during September of 2021. Both roadways are relatively low traffic roadways. Lazy Lane has an average daily traffic volume of about 2,200 trips, with a morning peak hour of about 157, an afternoon peak hour of 189 trips. Curtis Street has ADT of about 3,100 trips, with peak hours of about 200 and 300 trips during the two peak hours. Our office arranged for the conduct of manual turning movement counts at the intersections of Route 10 and Lazy Lane, at Route 229 and Curtis Street, and at the intersection of Lazy Lane and Curtis Street. And we reviewed those three intersections for both the background and combined traffic volume conditions with and without this proposed development. For the trip generation for this development, we assumed a directional split of 60% of the site-generated traffic to and from Route 10, 40% of the traffic to and from Route 229. And the capacity analysis, which is summarized in Table 4 in our report, indicates that all of the intersections operate at acceptable levels of service, and the average increase in delay as a result of this development is in the less than 1 second to perhaps 7 seconds of additional delay at the intersection of, say, Route 229 and Curtis Street. We're also aware of the fact that this commission had approved development. It's the Anthony parcel on the corner of 229 and Curtis Street. So we did get a copy of that report, and we reviewed that intersection both with and without the Anthony development in place. So we've taken a look at this development, whether or not that development moves forward in the future. Because we understand it's currently under review by the Office of the State Traffic Administration, as I understood it, or at least it was at the time of the preparation of our report. As you see, as Stephen had talked to you, the site access is to Lazy Lane. It's a single driveway to the site, 20 feet of pavement, providing a single entering and exiting lane. It's proposed to be striped with a stop bar and a stop sign at the intersection. The site driveway, intersection of that driveway and Lazy Lane, all movements operate at a level of service A during peak hours. So it'll be very easy for people to both enter and exit the site without significant delays. We believe the intersection site distances at that location are adequate for the 85th percentile speeds according to the conduct counts, which are 36 miles per hour and 33 miles per hour in the eastbound and westbound directions. So we believe that the local roadway network is capable of accommodating the additional traffic from this development without significant increases in delay, and that the roadway network can accommodate the traffic volume safely and efficiently. If the commission has any specific questions, I'll be happy to address them. And I think at this time, we're going to turn it over for questions. Oh, Steve would like to get up and, I guess, summarize for us.
It's a closer.
I just wanted a point of clarification. When we originally started this, and I think we submitted it, we did propose 24 units as per Scott's report, but we did eliminate a unit just to try to incorporate some of the amenities, the gazebo and the picnic tables and the community garden areas. So it is 23 units, even though his report is based on 24. So that generally concludes our presentation on the application. We're happy to answer questions now or wait for public and answer questions later.
We'll do both, Steve, as you know, so, but let's get started with the commission members. Is there any questions from members of the commission? Commissioner Woloski will lead us off. Go ahead.
So, Steve, I'm not sure if you were involved with a similar property that's on Berlin Street over by Dairy Farms. Seems to be about the same size
I think
area.
Seb did that one.
Bovino,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But I'm familiar
So,
with the progress, I think, right?
I mean, for what we're trying to do, we've seen this property several times before. This seems to be the most logical use for it by the lack of the public here. I think that people in the area seem to be in agreement with that. To quote my commissioner here, it does seem to be the highest and best use of the property. I commend you for the open space. It looks like I'm not trying to sell it for you, but, you hit the affordable unit number. It's over 10%. Of course, we're still treading water with that, but that's not your concern. So with all that said, I really don't have a question. I guess that was just a bunch of comments.
I do know, one of the things you touched on was the percentage of affordable, and I understand your concern, because if we just go with 10% all the time, you never make any ground. And this isn't a lot of ground, but it's a little
But
ground.
it's a piece, and
It's a
it's
piece, and
important. I get that.
I think that I felt, and I stress this to the applicant, that let's get over 10%, because it's important in the overall picture of our affordability in town to get there. So that was something that
Right. And I mean-
I anticipated that would be important to this commission.
And I know traffic issues are a big concern on this street.
Yes.
And I don't see this development adding to that. Most of the issues with the homeowners in the area have been regarding the truck traffic and the commercial traffic. This certainly adds none of that. And there's, again, no burden on our schools. So
Thank you.
I think it's a well-done plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the commission?
I have a question.
Kristen?
Oh, hello. So how are the sewers and water going to be maintained?
So the sewer and water run parallel there's an existing water line, the sewer line in Lazy Lane at this location. We're proposing to connect with new mains running parallel through our road system up to this point. There's a spur of sewer line and water that comes up, and then it continues up this road, and the water actually loops. The water department likes to have loops in their system, so we can have a continuous loop of water line. The sewer line doesn't need to be looped, so the sewers end at the corners, and the houses each tie in individually to each sewer line. This system will be owned and maintained by the association. So it's not something, typically the town public works maintains sewers in condominium or common interest communities. The association is responsible for that maintenance.
And then I saw that the fire department rejected their proposal, so you guys are going to put in the required fire hydrants per?
Yeah, the fire department, the water department kind of talk behind the scenes and say, this is what we need. And that missed me. But typically, what the fire department wants for hydrants, the fire department gets for hydrants. So we'll give them whatever they need for hydrants.
And then in terms of age restriction, you might have said it and I might have missed it. Is it 18 and over or is it 55 and over?
So the residents are 55 and older. I believe your regulation permits children of residents 18 and above to live in and I don't know offhand if it's limited to 1 plus or not, but that is actually different than most 55 plus communities. This regulation that you guys enacted is specific to 18 plus on the children of any owners of the property.
And then will any of these properties have basements?
I don't believe so. I mean, we did lay it out for basements if they needed them. We have foundation drains proposed and such, but again, we're trying to make them affordable and easy to use, so they'll probably be slab on grade if the grading permits. Sometimes we'll need to pour frost walls if the grades drop off a little bit.
And then one of the neighbors submitted a letter because she was worried about groundwater in the area. And I know, as you stated in a different map, that there's like wetlands in behind it. She's worried that disruption of this land will further impact her property.
Okay, I'm not sure where that owner lives. The topography of the site generally flows from west to east. There's a wetland behind SRS, the trucking facility at this location here, which basically receives all of the runoff from this site. We are proposing all of this to be graded away from the property lines. So this grading it behind these units brings all this water down and around this unit into this basin, and then the same with all these units. They all come down into this first basin and then they go into the second basin over here through a pipe under the road. So all around the units, it's all designed to travel from a westerly to easterly direction towards this wetland. And so I don't believe, this is our closest neighbor at this location, and we would be directing any of this water east, away from her property. Also, SRS has a large berm, so this water hits that berm and travels to the north into that wetland. So we don't, I'm pretty sure, and I think the town engineer could comment that we're directing water away from any of the abutting properties.
And then the back corner, that's going to be the open space? Nope, the other corner.
This corner?
Yeah.
This is actually a low depression for stormwater management. So we have green spaces in this corner. We have our amenities here. But this area is our main source, our main location for stormwater management.
And by amenities, you don't mean like a clubhouse?
Gazebo, community gardens, picnic tables, and such.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You all set? Okay. Any other questions from members of the commission?
I have a quick
Rob?
question. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Rob, go first, yeah.
Steve, I believe you addressed there's a 50-foot buffer on the northeast side of the property.
Yeah, and if you see these trees here, my guy kind of stuck those in there. This is the former HQ thing that I think CWPM now owns. And when HQ owned it, we came in with an application to reduce that 50-foot buffer. They had encroached in that area, and we came in with an application to reduce it to 25 feet. This commission was not in favor of that. And at that time, we proposed a berm to reestablish this buffer, and it was reestablished and replanted. So there is a 50-foot strip of undisturbed landscaping between our northerly property line and the activity on the northerly parcel.
Do you know how the property is being utilized today? I know HQ kind of sold off. Are we aware?
I do not know. Ralph maybe can tell us. They're basically the same type of operation. So the same type of operation. They're basically recycling.
Yeah, from aerial maps, it looks like it's mulch and other
Yeah,
things
and,
that are kind of
and
sitting there.
this area was all pretty much mulch in that area. They had bins with mulch in it and things like that.
You all set, Rob? Todd?
Yeah, just regarding the green space, Stephen, maybe you spoke to it before regarding the picnic tables and gazebo and such, but looks like, obviously there's green space around it, and looks like there's some trees there to the south side. Is there any, enough space for anything that's planned, either, I'm guessing not, since you didn't say a walking path, but is there anything outside of just a buffer with that green space, or is it
We just proposed a green space. I mean, in the past, we've done like a walking path, like a stone dust or a mulched path, which I think there's room to do that. I didn't want to crowd the back of these units, so I thought about bringing something in between these units off this corner, and we probably could do a loop or something like that if the commission felt that would be beneficial to the site.
Okay.
All set?
Appreciate it. Yep.
Anyone else with any questions? Caleb?
So can you talk a little bit about, there's a requirement in the Arch Street to have the arterial street. If you can, I know that there was a response to it. Can you kind of walk us through that response? 'Cause
Yeah, and I
I'm a little bit
apologize.
unclear.
I think Jeremy and I were going back and forth with that, and his position was, give me a precedent where this has been similar situation. So the regulation specifically says it has to be off an
Arterial.
arterial. Pronouncing words like that is not my forte. And when we go through, the streets are basically designated by the state of Connecticut. And when we went through that, this didn't technically fall under that category. So I was kind of looking around saying, well, I feel like this has been done in town before. So we did find the Pacer Lane site, which is basically a residential street that off of Marion Avenue, very close proximity of Marion Avenue, and we felt that is a similar situation. We feel Lazy Lane is actually a much busier street than Pacer Lane, and it fit into the requirement of what you were looking for when the regulation was proposed. I think when the regulation was proposed, and I know Sev is here, I think he's kind of was the guy that created this, as I look back to you, Mr. Lovely. And I think that this type of road is really the type of road that they were thinking about. I think it is a technicality when it comes to the state designation, but we didn't have anything else to fall back on. The town doesn't have their own designation for that type of road. But as you know, if the precedent has been set, we feel that it is acceptable for us to propose this on this road.
Okay. 7 years.
Hopefully, you guys agree with us.
Next question is, how wide is the street around here? I know we talked a little bit about additional parking and making sure that visitors had some space. If somebody wanted to pull up on the side of the road, is that gonna,
So this road is relatively narrow. Your regulations are for a 20-foot right-of-way, or paved surface. And most of your roads in town are generally a minimum of 24 feet. Most of your subdivisions, things like that. So 20 is narrow. I think the intent of the regulation, though, was to reduce the amount of impervious surface and to slow down traffic. Narrower roads slow traffic down, keep people from driving too fast. That was the reason 2-car garages on each unit and 2 parking spaces in the driveway to try to, we really don't want people parking on the side of the road here. If the commission felt that visitor spaces are necessary, then I think we could fit in, 4 to 6 visitor spaces around the corners and away from the units.
okay, so the road's 20 feet wide?
20 feet, yep. And
That's
that's
our-
what the
that's our
regulation,
minimum,
yeah.
okay. And then the last question, and I'll tee this one up for the chair. The sidewalks?
So we have 75 feet of frontage. Very difficult with the storm drainage on Lazy Lane. However, we can install that 75 feet of sidewalk if necessary.
So there'd be no requirement for sidewalks within the
There
development?
are none for inside the site.
Okay. Well, that answers the questions at least.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Hopefully,
Chair.
to your satisfaction.
Any other member of the commission with any questions or comments for the applicant at this time? Let's follow up on Caleb's question. Are you looking for a sidewalk waiver, or are you? I was just tell me yes or no.
Yeah, I
We'll deal
know
with it either way.
that
I'm just
I
wondering.
usually don't ask you for sidewalk waivers. I think in this situation, we have a 75 feet of frontage, we have 20 feet of road in the middle, and then it's hard to see here, but we have a swale that runs all the way up and down Lazy Lane on this side of the road. So it can be done, but I hate to use this term, it's gonna be a sidewalk to nowhere. There's gonna be a swale on each side of it, and it's not gonna go anywhere. So I guess I would respectfully request you consider a sidewalk waiver for this portion
Okay.
of Lazy Lane.
Okay. And you may have answered this with Commissioner Britton's question, but the 50-foot buffer on the north side of the development there that
Yes.
is currently there, there's no plan to reduce that buffer, although that's not on this property, right?
It's not in our control, it's not on our property.
Okay.
We did come before this commission to reduce it, you said no, so I'd be surprised if anyone came back and asked to reduce it.
It's not part of this application
Not
because
part
it's
of the
not on your,
application.
not on your property, so.
Right.
And to follow up on Commissioner Gaida's comment with the Water Department, there's a letter dated November 21st with a series of 12 different stipulations included in there. You're aware of this letter and the
Yes, I
stipulations that
am.
are included in there? Your plans, as of right now, do not include the pieces in this, but you are aware of this and you don't have,
We don't
I'll say,
have
a
any issues.
problem
We've
with
had
any-
conversations with the water department about the comments, and
Okay.
we're on board with them.
Okay, understood. The responses to the planning department comments, item number 10, which talked about fences around the detention basins. The response was the fence has been added to the northeast basin. The other basin has a more subtle 4-to-1 side slope, and you don't feel that the fence is necessary. Can you just give me
So-
like a 1 or 2 sentence elaboration on that?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, the site plan regulations basically refer to the subdivision regulations for stormwater management, because that's where that information is. And any basins that have a steeper than 2-to-1 slope are required, or have water with them for more than a 24-hour period, are required to have fences per the regulation. We generally try to design our basins with a 3-to-1 slope, which is more manageable and can be mowed. And that's what the larger basin is designed at, a 3-to-1. However, we did propose a fence on that basin because 3-to-1 is still a little steep. The 4-to-1 is really more like a grass depression. It'll be very shallow. It'll be walkable, mowable. You could actually play in it if you wanted to. Not that there's going to be kids here, but if you want to have your grandchildren out there, you want to throw them a Frisbee, you could do that. So it could be fenced if you really felt it's necessary, but I would ask you to, if you really felt strongly about it, and you were inclined to approve this, I'd say let us, maybe once it's built, you can see it. It's gonna be pretty light from a grade perspective. I don't personally think it requires a fence.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers your question.
I don't know if we would request it. I just wanted to get
Okay.
some elaboration on
And
that.
Jim maybe can back me up on that.
Yeah, well-
He's awfully quiet over there in the corner.
That's a good thing necessarily for you.
Well, sometimes, yeah, most
And
of the
then,
time.
and then again, this may be more site-related as well, but we're going to have that come up tonight potentially as well. And it is part of the overall application here in a broader sense. But item number 13 on that same list of responses talks about the regulation requirement that there be a 20-foot building separation. You want to just talk about that real briefly, Steve? And then I have a question for Scott Heska as well.
Yeah, so the regulation requires buildings to be 25 feet apart. That includes structures like decks or porches. Originally, when we submitted this, our decks were basically butted too close together. So what we did is we flipped the decks, so we staggered them so they're farther apart. Thank you. And Scott's taking care of me because I'm struggling over here. And we also, so the units are 25 feet apart, the decks are 25 feet apart, but we also incorporated sections of fence line in here, which I can probably blow up, just to, the regulation, the idea is so the units aren't on top of each other. And if you can see, and when you look at the way we staggered the decks to get that separation from deck to deck, but we also incorporated white vinyl fence here around the back of the units, and here, then landscaping, then another white vinyl fence, landscaping, a gap, white vinyl fence, landscaping, gap, to try to not only meet the regulation of the 25 feet, but also provide some privacy from unit to unit. And I think that was the intent of Jeremy's comment.
Okay. Real quick, Scott. The proximity to our police station on Lazy Lane, in your professional opinion, you don't feel that any traffic generated by this project would infringe upon their ability to travel as needed? Yes or no?
No, it should not. You're looking at one trip every 3 minutes on average, and that's,
I just wanted to put it out there, so I
Yeah.
appreciate your response.
I would say, my professional opinion, there's no impact, no significant impact on the operations of the police department.
Is that your personal opinion or your professional opinion?
It is both.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Even better. Okay, any other questions for members of the commission before we throw it out to, or open it up to members of the public? Steve, anything else you want to add before we do that?
No, I'll be happy to get back up here after we hear from the
You know how it goes, yep, okay.
Thank
So,
you.
at this time, we'll open it up to members of the public. If there's anyone who'd like to testify either for or against this application, please come up to the podium, give us your name and your address, and share your thoughts. How are you?
Hello, Regina Colviello, 12 Beecher Street. I'm in favor of the proposed, I had 24, but 23 units now, of age-restricted homes. And I did want to bring up, as Chair Hammersley, you mentioned in the meeting on 9/17/2024 regarding another development, that you have a responsibility as a body whose responsibility for increasing our affordable housing stock based on what Hartford legislatures has said to meet this seriously, that this would do that. Therefore, this should also pass unanimously, just like the other one, and I would like to just submit that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Regina. Good to see you as always. Anyone else like to testify on this application at this time? Going twice? Steve, anything? This is where you close it out.
Well, I just want to thank you for your time and consideration tonight.
You're
You know,
welcome.
this-
All right, let's, oh,
Well, that's it. I'll keep it short and sweet. I'll stop talking before I bury myself.
Silence is best sometimes, you know?
If that's okay, I'll close this out
Yeah.
and I'll leave my laptop. I think Sev's gonna borrow it, so.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Let me, before you leave, let me ask this question, because there was, I think, some correspondence or some discussion going on about leaving the public hearing open. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we should close it? I mean,
I personally think that unless you have additional questions about the public hearing, I think that we're fine closing it. There are some site plan issues. The water department comments are site plan issues, so if you wanted to continue that portion until we address those comments, but generally, we don't have any opposition to the comments that were raised by the water department. We're happy to address those comments as any part of any consideration that you might have.
right. Dave, is that, how do you feel about that? Is that okay, based on the conversations that you had with?
Yeah, I think
parties?
the concerns may have been for another zoning regulation amendment that's coming up later, so I didn't hear anything
Okay.
tonight that would stop you from.
Okay, so based on that, is there any objection from members of the commission to closing the public hearing on these two agenda items tonight, right now? Anyone? All right, we'll close this.
Thank
Site plan does come up later on.
Yes,
It's-
I'll
it's a little bit
stick around for
different.
that.
I think some of the stuff we talked about has to do with that anyways, but that's okay, right? All right, thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Item 9C, proposed zoning text amendment for revisions to Section 4 of the zoning regulations special zones. The proposal includes adding Section 4I titled Special Design Mixed-Use Zone to provide retail, service, residential, and professional office uses in locations close to limited access highways or arterial roads in a manner which ensures public safety and compatibility with surrounding zones. This is zone amendment number 618. Mr. Bravino, this is your application. The floor is yours, sir.
It must be Sev, because usually I do this really easy, but I'm struggling here. All right.
Yeah. Package this one. here.
Package.
Thank you.
You just blow it out.
Yeah.
Is that good? Or more?
Yeah, it should be a little bit more probably. That's good. Yeah. And this goes up and down with this ring.
Yeah, or you can use the.
Yeah.
Sev and I
Good.
really like each other. I know we're competitors.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
You gotta get a stipend for work, you know? Go
Good
ahead,
evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. Seb Bovino, planner with Kratzer Jones and Associates, representing the applicant, myself, and other property owners located in the areas considered for overlaid zone, for a floating zone. I would like to ask that the previous record, the minutes of the previous record be included together with this presentation tonight. I have.
You asked for it or not, Sev, it is part of the record, so.
I have copies of the areas indicating the limits of the floating zone. One is on Meriden Waterway Road, the other is on Queen Street. And I have 10 copies here that commissioners can look at and then place it in the record. This is for Meriden Waterway Road, 10 copies. We heard the commission's concerns and the public concern at the last hearing. Therefore, we made adjustments to the proposed regulations. I submitted this to staff, and what we have here is the first page. At the bottom of the list here, these are mixed-use zone We added a section specifically for this proposed overlay, floating zone. The first page of the language, so page 2, the purpose in this area here, the highlighted area in caps, we added clearly a new conversion or redevelopment of properties that deals with existing expansion of existing footprint of a building and not to exceed 12,000 square feet per lot. So this was made clear. The last time I understand was not clear enough, so we have added that in there. Section 4I.1 applicability. We have reduced the scope of the two areas. On Queen Street, we have included the area that's east of Queen Street, the westerly side. We eliminated it. Therefore, creating like a transition zone from the industrial area, which is west of the railroad, goes into a business zone, and then goes to the mixed use, and then to the east of that, there is a residential zone on Dunham Street, or River Street. On Meriden Woodbury Road, we reduced the area that's covered by this. Again, it's shown on this page here. From Clark Street to Linwood Drive, instead of be from Canal Street like it was originally proposed, this has been reduced to Clark Street to Linwood Drive. Again, on this section here, we clearly indicate that this shall apply only to existing buildings with a second floor built prior to 1990. Under allowable uses, below that, there was a concern by Mr. Anderson regarding the allowed uses. The last one, we had B zone and CB zone and so forth. We eliminated the CB zone and the overlay business zone. So the allowed uses will be only the ones that are currently allowed in the B zone. At the required area for each unit was 1,500 square feet and 2,000. We increased that to 2,000 and 3,000 square feet per unit. Page 3. On the upper section of page 3, we have included again that buildings will be built prior to 1990, and the use should be only allowed on the second floor. And the basement, the first floor will be 100% utilized for business, except the areas necessary for access to second floor. Again, Mr. Anderson had a question regarding the number of units, the minimum number of units. And we have included in the affordability requirement that at least one unit will be, because some of these properties are small. So there won't be a lot of units on the small property. So we clearly indicated there shall be one unit minimum dedicated to workforce housing. At the bottom of this page here, section E talks about the size of the units, the building. Residential unit above the first story or the combined maximum gross floor area of all residential units shall not exceed 12,000 square feet. Clearly indicated. Page 4, the architectural stays the same. We have a pretty good description of what the architectural should be, the type of materials. Item 8 on this page here indicates there will not be any window air conditionings, and the central air units will be screened, appropriately screened, so that will not be objectionable from the street. They will not be visible. So any rooftop equipment as a HVAC unit shall be screened from public view with parapets featuring three-dimensional cornice treatment, and no window air conditioner will be allowed. Page 5 stays the same. talks about lighting, landscaping that we proposed the last time. Page 6, the density, height, and area and yard requirements, we have clearly added that this maximum height of this shall be 2-story, this location. There was a concern that maybe someone will build a 3-story building. And the lot coverage clearly is 25% lot coverage. Also, in this section, we have added a note indicating that for the purpose of calculating density, the 25% of area defined as inland wetlands, water bodies, water courses, and the 100-year floodplain area shall not be included. So as the chairman requested, to consider reducing the land area if there was any wetlands or floodplain, we have added that into the equation. I think we covered the gamut in terms of your concerns. I have copies here of each individual properties involved in that could be benefiting from this proposal. I also have provided two layouts for the commission to review. Here, this is the Meriden Waterbury Road layout. Let's see if it's going to be bigger.
Just give it a minute, so.
Okay. Big property. So this is the Meriden Waterbury Road property owned by Peter DiClemente. At this location here, we have the Manor Inn to the west of it. This is Clark Street Extension. This is Meriden Waterbury Turnpike to the north. And this is only one of the layouts. We have done other layouts. The property is 1.36 acres of property. And based on the computations, you could have, this is 59,495 square feet, almost 60,000. So if you apply the required area for each unit, which is 2,000 or 3,000, you could have 20 to 30 units here. You could propose that, but as you can see, based on the land geometry, the setback requirements, the proposed parking, the green spaces, and so forth, the only thing you can fit on this property is shy of the 12,000 square foot minimum maximum that we are proposing. And that equates on the second floor to about 10 units possibly. It depends how the mix is. So that's typical of any properties you deal with. The allowed coverage is 25%, but you're lucky if you could get about 10-15% lot coverage when you apply the parking, the green space, and the setbacks. This is the Queen Street property. I took 3 properties here, put them all together. So you have the property to the north, right at the town line with Plainville, a small property in the middle here, and about an acre of property here. Has wetlands and floodplain on it. It's 1.75 acres, all 3 properties together. And again, I was only able to fit about a 10,800 square foot building, which equates again as about 10 units. So this happens with any properties that will be under consideration. The yield will not be what the numbers call for in the ratio. The yield will be based on the setback and the lot coverage. To recap, my presentation is that this is not a zone change. We're requesting this to be, this is a tool that can be used to apply for a zone change, and then will be a special permit will be required after that. So there's multiple steps. to be taken by a property owner after this is approved. This only applies to two areas again, only the east side of Queen Street from River Street north to the town along with Plainville and Meriden-Woodbury Turnpike in Milldale in a reduced area from Clark Street to Linwood Drive. It doesn't apply to properties in the rear of the properties that have frontage on these two streets. There was a concern that other properties in the back, they could be added to it and a larger parcel be developed, but that's not the case, and it clearly is indicated that only the properties that face these two roads will qualify. This applies only to second story, again, of existing buildings built prior to 1990. This does not in any way reduce the rights of properties under current B zone. This does not reduce the amount of business use on a given property, no matter what size it is. It actually increases the possibility of a business use on the first floor. This does not negatively impact any large approved or contemplated developments that have been proposed in the town. This actually will help to rehab or rebuild properties that are vacant or underutilized at this time. This will improve the look of those areas, will bring life into those areas, provide needed housing that is more affordable to the workforce, and increases the tax base to the town of Southington. This will also bring many of these properties under compliance. When you look at Meriden-Woodbury Turnpike and Queen Street, a lot of the properties are already mixed use, and they are non-conforming. This proposal will bring those properties in conformity to the regulation. I expect that if approved, this will enhance the looks, the safety, the sense of community, the tax base of the town of Southington, and will support the statement that Southington is the city of progress. I have provided area maps delineating the limit of the floating zones. I've shown you the two preliminary layouts. I hope you consider approving the application with or without any stipulations. You have the right to add the stipulations. One of the applicants, Peter DeClement, is here tonight. He was not able to attend the last meeting. He would like to say a few words to the commission.
So, during the public portion, it's not part of he's not part of the application.
Yes.
He would be allowed under the public portion to make comments, not right now, though. This is you as the applicant. You present, you understand the format. You present to us, we ask you questions, we have a dialogue. You sit down, I open it up to members of the public. At that time, members of the public
Okay,
can come
fine.
up and,
Okay. That's fine, Mr. Chairman. This time, if you have any questions, you or the commission, I'd be glad to answer. Also, if there's a consensus to approve, we appreciate that. And if there's a consensus to deny this application, we would like it to be without prejudice so that we could come back with modified proposal if it's needed. Thank you.
okay. Thanks. Hey, Seth, stay there for a second. Any members of the commission have any questions of the applicant?
I have a quick question for you. Seb, the version I'm looking at, I didn't see that bottoms in the very first part in the purpose section. I think there was can you just go back to, I think it's the first page. Was there a square footage of like the overall size of buildings that would be allowed under this?
Yeah, the square footage of this property is,
I mean, not the size of like the units that, the size of the actual units, but the size of the buildings that would be allowed under this. So meaning like, if there's a property that was built, before 1990 under all of your requirements, but is like, 100,000 square feet, would that be restricted from being allowed to be developed in the second floor?
correct.
I thought I saw it in the beginning of your purpose section, but I could be wrong, because the version I'm looking at, I don't think has that, so I'm just curious on that.
The size of the building that's allowed is based on the current regulation, which is 25% of the land area. That's your footprint that you could try to put in. But as I said, if you take 25% of the land area, in this case, is 60,000 approximately, so you'll be a 15,000 square foot building, but we can only fit shy of the 12,000 because of all the other requirements. So you cannot put in any excessive size above what 25% is.
Got it, okay.
And in
then-
this case, if the client utilizes with the upstairs for residential, he's only allowed to go to 12,000.
Okay, no, thanks for that clarity.
Yeah.
And then the two maps you have here, because I did look at some of the images that, you know, that were online, but they didn't have the highlights on them. So these are all the properties specifically that would be impacted, so in the.
And I put a cross on the properties. The area maps covers all the properties within the area, but not all the properties qualify for this. There's a cross on the properties that qualify.
Okay, because when I was
Yeah.
looking at the ones online, it looked like some of them were like, places didn't even look like they had a second floor. So I just wanted to make sure the clarity, the number of
Yeah.
actual properties that would be
Yes.
included in these zones, because
That's
it
right.
wasn't
There's
clear from the
only,
pictures online.
only the properties with a second floor, and I made a notation of that on the map.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So it was brought to my attention that Mr. Di Clemente is actually the applicant. This is your application, correct? Sev is just your agent, yes? Correct. Okay. My apologies, I wasn't aware of that, but come on up. Thank you. Again, just start with your name and your address, please.
Peter D. Clementi. My address, my home address is 513 Seaside Avenue, Westbrook, but I have a building at 306 Clark Street and 298 Clark Street, adjacent to the 1608 Meriden Waterbury Road project. We also have a 857 Marion Avenue, a small little plaza over there, and we also fixed up the Grange in town, 137 Knowles. So if you don't mind, I just want to put this in. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board, and board members. I'm here in favor, obviously, it's our application of the SDMU as presented at SEV, and I want to thank SEV for his time and effort into doing this, because I really think the area needs revitalization, and he spent a lot of time, and I don't know if everybody's aware, but we've been to the strike force, we've been to a couple meetings. We wanted to know what can be done, and SEV has been working back and forth on this. And we've had several meetings in town and with SEV. So I just want to talk about my property, which is at 1608, and how it came to be. So I'm sure you're all familiar, but the property for the last 60 years was basically Quonset huts, small 7-8 structure building, outdoor storage, just kind of a miserable space. We bought where we did, Beacon Electric, we run it, and of course it's right across the street. So, which really didn't affect us, but it wasn't going anywhere. It was nothing to look at. So we found out in maybe 21, 22 that the property was going to be sold. We thought that was a good thing. Somebody was going to come in and propose a gas station, as we all know, and that kind of fell through. I think they asked for extension over extension over extension. I talked to the owner, and he said he basically, we could take it over and kind of revitalize this area. I thought it would be a good thing. So we purchased the property. Obviously, we spent our money on the property. We cleaned it up, came to the town. We've been doing demo along the way, trying to clean the property up. Hopefully, you guys can see that. We're going to be working in this direction at the same time, trying to figure out what can we put here? What would be a good product for the space? And what we came up with, and my wife is here tonight, Sandy, and my son Brandon as well. But just looking around at different towns and seeing the mixed-use buildings, and that's why I brought up the Sev, and, you know, thinking that, hey, we could do something like this there, we could do something, you know, possibly. Then coming to the town and saying, you know, can we do this? And the answer was basically no. And the reason why was because it's not written in the zoning. There's nothing in the zoning code that would allow us to do this in this particular zone. So, and I spoke with Dave several times thinking, oh, there was a way we could do it. This, you know, if it was a residential building, had to be within a certain time. I think the industrial building had to be built before a certain time. So every turn, we just couldn't do it. So this is why this floating zone was proposed. So if you don't mind, I just want to show you, this building's in Middletown. And again, this is our vision of something that could be put up there. And this building is in Middletown, 211 South Main Street. It houses, you know, commercial space below, residential space on top. There's banks, there's Neil Donuts. It's just a vibrant, good-looking building, I think. I thought it would be good there, maybe bring kind of a village effect to that area, 1608 Meriden Waterbury Road. Just another angle of the building, showing some architectural detail, which Sev spent some time inside this special permit as well. This building is in Clinton, and it's at 67 Main Street. And again, I know this is a third floor, or possibly whatever, but I was just, you know, again, going down to Main Street, seeing some mixed-use buildings. It's, as we all know, it's happening. We thought it would, you know, kind of just mention it. And here's another one in Madison that's going up as we speak. There's 12 units of building and commercial on the bottom, and that's on Route 1 in Madison, Connecticut. How do I get this out of here? If we can make this bigger. So we're able to get some drone footage of the area. And again, what this means is, was kind of just wanted to see what's going on in the area. This right here is Rivercrest, and I believe there's 93 units in here. And what we're proposing, like Sev said, if there's 9 or 10 units above us, and we're going to look at a bunch of residential units. We're within less than a mile right here, and a mile on the other side for E.G. Homes is there. The shops at Stonebridge and River Point, Cheshire, all within a mile. But what I would think is, you know, Rivercrest is one development. Over here, E.G. Homes, which is this area right here. Again, these are 93 units residential, and you know, we were actually looking on the site today, and some of these houses, I don't know, you know, they're going for 700 or 800,000. You don't even own the property, but I just thought that, you know, a couple residential units, you know, we would offer a little bit something different. It would be, you know, the walking trails not far away. You know, there's other plazas. And these people, you know, everybody that lives here can shop in the area if we're able to build something. This is Clark Street on the way to the post office, which I'm not quite, again, I'm just showing you kind of the area, which I thought it was interesting. This is a Google map, and it's just showing the area of Linwood Drive over here and to Clark Street. And our property that we're speaking of is sitting right here. And that would be for the floating zone. So again, this is east on Meriden Waterbury Road. And on the way to Linwood, that we believe would be revitalized if, you know, somebody else could do some mixed use. There's residential areas right here. our area is obviously right below us. And this is going west towards 84, the Manor Inn. And again, I'm excited about doing something here. I'm hoping that, you know, the board will look at what we're asking and hopefully vote on it. And I mean, we're excited to get going, and I don't, we're ready to do something. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for me. Just don't make them too technical.
Thanks, Peter. My apologies for earlier, by the way.
It's all right.
I didn't understand. I'm glad that I caught it before we got to the other part. Were you the owner of the property when we acted on this on this parcel? At least 2 times in the last couple of years, we've approved applications for that.
One time. So
You owned it the last time that we approved.
the last time, because when I bought the property, it was cut like had a diagonal cut in it, where the back half was industrial.
Okay.
And then we came and you allowed us to go the full property as a B zone.
Right, as a B zone. Are you aware that we do allow for mixed-use development in our town, and our regulations currently provide for that under certain conditions, we'll call it?
I would say no, because I was told you weren't.
So I'm just going to read here that conversion of a residential wood frame structure, which is in existence on May 30th, 1982, to a mixed-use building, both residential and business, is provided. And then there's 3 different stipulations, one of which is the state meeting state fire and building code. The second is the structure is designed to be not more than 2 stories in height. And the third is the commercial use is limited to the ground floor, and the residential use is limited to the upper floor, which is kind of sounds like the same thing that's being proposed here, but you'll acknowledge, in a broader sense than just your property, it applies to a wider berth.
Yes, I believe that what you were just saying, I thought we needed to get in the same footprint of the residential unit that exists on the property.
Yeah,
It-
that's correct.
I think that's true. So you wouldn't be able to move the building, right, under the current regulation. You would have to use that structure, but I think you could add on to the building. Is that correct, Dave?
Mr. Chairman, we could explore being a non-conforming use for the zone, and through SPU, we could expand it up to 25%.
Okay. So I'm not sure if that fits the plan that you shared on the corner of Meriden, Waterbury, and Clark Street, that parcel.
Yeah, does Seb want to say something?
And that may be the rub, if you will, on what you're.
Mr. Chairman, Seth Bovino,
Yep.
we met with the staff multiple times regarding this, and that's the problem. He could only use that based on what you're referring to, the footprint of that structure that's there, plus 25% expansion. He could not do what we're proposing to do now, which is about a 12,000 square foot building, which is a combination of all those buildings removed and reconstructed. So he could not be doing that.
And he's looking to reposition it as well, correct?
He could do, yeah, that's one of the
Under the
layouts.
plan that we're seeing here,
Yeah.
the potential plan, if you will, right?
The idea is to utilize the property 100% in one structure and position it the best way possible. That was one of the layouts.
Yeah.
That's number 2. Put on an angle
Okay.
to kind of generate an intersection. When you come through there, you face the intersection. But we could create an L-shaped building there. But again, that regulation you're referring to, it is true, it exists, but it limits you to the current footprint.
Plus 25%.
Plus 25%. And
Right.
that footprint is probably 1,000 square feet or less.
Yeah, okay. I just, again, Peter, I just wanted to make sure that you understood that, because.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
But I understand what you're trying, I'm on the strike force, so I remember you coming to us and talking to us about it. So Commissioner Woloski has some.
I'd also like to point out that 30 of the example properties that Seb provided, 12 of them could currently do what we just discussed. They could do the second-story commercial with 25% expansion. 12 of 30, so just under 50%.
Yeah, and they could do that if they
Pointing,
want it.
just-
As I said, this
So can you
doesn't,
talk a little bit closer,
I wanted the commission
Yeah.
to hear that, and I wanted it on the record. I
Yes.
wanted that out there, because that's something that no one's heard up until I said it.
yeah. They
Thank you.
could do that, or they could, under our proposal, combine parcels and generate a nice new setting.
I
That's the
understand what you're
idea.
saying. I'm
That's
just
the idea.
trying to point out what currently exists for a contrast.
You all set, Steve? Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Before I do that, you guys are all set, right? I mean, I can open it up to questions here, and then we're going to open it up to members of the public. Yeah, okay. You get a chance to come back up and rebuttal, or if you want to call it that, so. But stand pat, probably mostly Sev, Sev, come back up. Commissioner Guida, I believe, has a.
Oh,
I do, hello. So in terms of rehabbing some of these properties to bring them up to code and make them look much nicer, when you're converting the properties and including housing, is it going to be age restricted, or is it open to families? Anyone can live there?
anybody can live there, but it's geared more to young professionals, someone over 55 that doesn't want a house anymore and has a husband and wife, or they cannot afford to have a house anymore, and so they can move here. You have maybe a single person or a recently married couple that they want to get started.
But there's nothing stopping, like, parents with kids from moving in, adding to kids in the school systems? Nothing?
Well, the maximum number of bedrooms we have here is 2 bedrooms.
But you could still have 2 kids. You could have a married couple or a couple living together, and then you can have bunk beds or however you design the living space, so it could be.
It's
more
not the perfect place to be with a family, and it's not meant to be doing that, but it could be. It could be. We have no restriction on that, but it's the fact, the size of the unit, the location of these units, where they will be in a commercial area, it's more geared to the people that I described, not to a family.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? You all set? Kristen, you all set?
Oh, yes, I'm
Yeah,
all set.
okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Any other questions for members of the commission to the applicant? Sev?
I got a quick question.
Okay, Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, just, and this might be kind of a cheesy question, but the properties that Peter showed us up there, that was all new development, right? That wasn't like rehabbed older properties that, like, that was either, there were existing developments there that were raised to the ground with a new development created that looks, you know, really polished and everything like that. Whereas, would that be kind of the intent with some of these properties? I know obviously multiple people own these properties, so you probably can't speak to that whole thing, but do you think overall that it's to rehab older properties or to raise them to the ground and develop a, you know, a larger property that is brand new, that fits this specific?
This will allow them to rehab or reconstruct.
Okay.
And if they want to join the neighbor and create, because there's parcels that are like less, half acre, a little bit more, they could join 3 properties, like I showed the one on Queen Street, which totals 1.7 acres, 3 properties. They can do that and generate a nice setting, more of a village type of setting. But otherwise, they could do it individually. And it's based on that footprint that I discussed. And they have something, I know there's a 4-family on Queen Street there that's in bad shape. And they could raise that down and create some office space, retail space on the bottom and put the units on top and have a better situation. Or they could combine it with a neighbor. So it's geared for both.
Yeah.
It's up to the individual.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Rob?
Hey, Seth, how are you?
Good.
He talked about adding the minutes into the, today's meeting, which it already is, but, just maybe think about kind of what Lou Perillo was talking about last meeting. And I don't know if you had a chance to really address him after he had a chance to speak. I feel like we kind of ended it quickly, but, he kind of talks about how he was not for this because, it's kind of picking who's gonna be the winners and who's gonna be the losers here, meaning that, the single-family homes won't have a chance to rehab their property. And it's not like a big plan where it's like, all right, we're thinking this section of town. We're really kind of being more micro about it in this, in this whole presentation, right? So I just want to know your thoughts on what some of Lou Perillo's comments were last week.
I quickly touched on it regarding the impacts to other projects. He referred to other projects that could be unintentional consequences, but I don't see any impact to those large developments that were approved, like on West Street or the one downtown Center Street. This doesn't impact that. This is more geared to improve the areas that these structures are in. And the single structures that you're talking about, if the structures are in bad shape, they could join the neighbor and do something together. It doesn't preclude anybody to join together, even if it's a single family, with the one that has the second story on it, and generate a new development. So it is geared to promote development and redevelopment.
But that's only if there's collaboration between neighbors,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So if you don't have that and somebody doesn't want to leave their child home or whatever it might be, right? It could be a conflict.
If they don't want to cooperate, they have to live with what they have. So I'm giving, this is a tool, an additional tool that we're giving to the property owners in these areas to be able to do redevelopment, rehabbing, and also provide housing that's desperately needed in town. And you're going to have a lot more units in this smaller development, totally more units that you get, let's say, like we've done the Arch Zone development, 27 units, you get 3 units of affordable. Here you get more of those units. We have a 20% dedicated to affordable housing.
And now that you've narrowed it down to what properties qualify, have you come up with a better number of a range of units, or is it still the same? I think it was like 40 to 50 units.
I
total.
said, the last time off the cuff remark, the chairman asked me, without doing any research, 40 to 60. I actually took the time, I checked each properties, and I'm coming up with 27 to 28 units on Queen Street and 40 to 41 units on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike, because you get about 69 units. So I was off 9 units.
Not bad. So about 13 affordable housing units,
So,
would be the max, right?
So 69 is, let's say, 70, 20%, 13, 14 units. And a 27-unit Arch Zone, you get 3 units. So it's quite a bit more percentage-wise.
Right. Thanks, Seth.
You're right.
Any other questions from members of the commission? Sev, when you give those numbers, the 27 to 28 total units on Queen Street, 40 to 41 units on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike, what size unit are you talking about?
I did an average. The units I have listed in the, I have the 1-bedroom and the 2 bedrooms, and I have the studios, so I did kind of an average to get to those number of units. And I used the general, in a 10,000 square foot building, the upstairs, if you subtract hallways and things like that, dead space, and you have 800 square feet type of unit, the largest one, that's how I come up with 10 units.
Okay, let me try, let's go to one specific here. Let's go to the one that you had up there on Queen Street. Could you pull that one up? That's all Peter stuff. Yeah, that's Peter stuff too, right? I'm trying to get back to your presentation, Sev.
Yeah. Yeah, he has his own, but you have the other one too?
No.
No.
Yeah, down. You gotta reduce it so it can load quicker. No. Sev, you're going in the wrong direction.
I know, and it's not going there. This is the Millville one. Here's
There we
the
go,
Queen.
right there, right
Here's
there.
the Queen Street one.
All right, you can leave it just like that, that's fine, right? So you're suggesting here that parcel, which is really right now 3 parcels, right? that there's a potential there, what you put out here, I'm looking at it, is 10 units, right?
Yes.
Based on the square footage that I did, that actually is 27 studio, 18 one-bedroom, and 13 two-bedroom. So how do you get to 10 units?
That's what I said the last time, and I'm going to repeat it. You using the land area divided by the square footage allowed per the land area. I have in there, you could do a unit with 2,000 square foot of land or 3,000. That's how you arrive at that, correct?
I'm using the revised language that you provided to the commission
Yeah.
on what, I think what Commissioner Britton was driving at, what's the maximum number of units that you can put on that, in that space. So again, that's 3 properties that are all being joined together, that are being combined. What's the biggest size building you can put on there based on your regulation, proposed regulation, and based on the requirements under your regulation, again, 27 studio, 18 one-bedroom, 13 two-bedroom. I don't know how you got to 10.
And-
That's what I'm asking you, is how you got to 10.
In the regulation that I submitted again, it was on the previous one, it is on the new one. You have a maximum footprint of 12,000 square feet. You don't go by the calculation that you divide the land area divided into the 2,000 or 3,000 square foot to get your units. That's what I mentioned in the beginning. So you take the 12,000 square foot footprint, but in this case, I'm able to do a 10,800 square foot footprint. With that, that's how I estimated the number of units. And you cannot put 20 units. You can't. You can't, because you're restricted by the footprint. And then you got the architectural features. The upstairs can actually be less than the 10,000 square feet. So that's how I arrived at the number of units, which is the reality. You cannot fit 20 units because you got parking requirements. If you look at the site plan here, the table indicates the parking requirements. On the first floor, you have the number of units, the number of parking that you need for the retail. And then I have 20 spaces for the upstairs, so we barely fit the required parking. To the right of this property here, see the green space here? This is subject to a floodplain area. You have the water quality basin in this corner here. And then you have the wetlands, and you have the wetlands buffer. So that's how this is. It's the limit, it's the setback, the parking requirement, and your maximum footprint, which is in the regulation, 12,000 max.
Okay, so this is one potential on that strip of Queen Street, correct?
Three properties.
And this is taking 3 of the properties on the, I believe it's the northern part of Queen Street on the Plainville line,
Yes.
and combining those 3 properties, and thereby creating a new development, which your modification suggested you were taking that language out of the previous proposal, and you insert, or you continue to include the wording redevelopment or new conversion. That's the
rehab.
actual language, and you remove the term, quote, new development
That's
out
right.
of that language. But, so let me ask you this question. What's the difference? What's the difference between what you have in that piece of your new regulation and what you have in your old regulation? Because essentially, the way I look at it, they're all new development. It's all new development.
New development means, to me, and probably to you, is you take a vacant piece of property and you build on it according to the regulation. This is a redevelopment, which means you have already a structure on it. It's clearly indicated in the regulation. Existing buildings built prior to 1990, maximum footprint of 12,000 square feet. That's the difference. Development versus redevelopment and rehabbing.
Okay.
So I didn't take anything, I took out the development because some of the commissioners interpret that to be that I could have taken a raw piece of land and built on it. And so I removed that from the equation, and now you have redevelopment, which means you take an old building, you can knock it down or rehabbing it, whatever you want to do. but it's dedicated to the existing buildings with second stories built prior to 1990. That's the driving force of this.
Okay, so maybe you've done this math. I can do it by the maps that you provided with us, but I'm just gonna ask, maybe you can make my job a little bit easier. On Queen Street, how many sites are we talking about?
How many what?
Sites are we talking about under
They're
this?
indicated on the map that I passed around.
There's not a number there, though. I'm wondering if you counted them. I mean, I can count them myself.
No,
but I'm
I will
wondering
do
if
it. I will do it. I
You
have
don't
it.
need to do it, Seb. If you didn't do it, just say you didn't do it. I can count them.
No, I have them. On Queen Street, the northerly end, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sites. Most of them on the northerly end, and there's one towards the south end of that area. So that's 6 sites.
There's only 6 sites that are listed there?
6 sites, I put the cross on it. It's in the easterly side of Queen Street. As I said in the beginning, I removed the westerly side of Queen Street. The previous proposal was...
Yeah, I'm still counting 10, though. I'm not combining those 3
They do not
locations.
qualify. Not all of them are qualified
Okay.
for this proposal.
Okay, how about on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike? What are we looking at?
Meriden Woodbury Road Turnpike. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 properties that could qualify. And there's a cross on it. But again, this is a floating zone that covers a certain area. We have to come forward with a request for a zone change for each property. Each property owner can come forward and request a zone change, and you will have plenty of opportunity to analyze in more detail. But this is a floating zone to give you a sense where the area is that we're contemplating,
Yeah, it's like an arc zone,
okay?
right?
By the way, this is modeled after the MUT zone that's on West Street that was created by the town, except this is geared more to the smaller sites.
Okay, okay. Any other questions for members of the commission at this time? Kristen?
So in what's submitted online, it does show the properties on the other side on the agenda, on the west side of it. So does that mean the application is being amended?
No, there is, the map submitted shows the properties with the dashed lines that cover only the easterly side of Queen Street. If you're looking at, maybe you're looking at the previous submittal. This is the,
This is the one I'm looking at.
this is the map I submitted.
For today, yeah.
And that also submitted during the week. It shows the dashed line starting on the east side of the
Okay, so it doesn't include the other properties. That includes like, that building, Hollywood, and the other ones. So Hollywood wouldn't be included in that?
Hey, Seb, you can't have the sidebar here. We need to get this recorded so that our,
Okay, it includes all the buildings on the east side, but not all of them, because there's buildings there that are single stories. There's buildings there, like the automotive shops that are there, there's a couple of them. There is a retail space across from Eggway, the Perry Plaza, that doesn't qualify. There's another small building prior to Pep Boys that doesn't qualify. And then there's a Pep Boys building. Only portion of that building will qualify. They already have upstairs 4,000 square feet of space, and those could be converted to residentials. Then north of that, you have 2 structures that they used for, one is for family, one is a commercial, in pretty bad shape. The owner was here the last time, and he could convert those. He can knock them down or convert them, whatever you can do with those, or you can get together with the other properties to the north. I have 3 properties. They could get together and make it 4 properties. That's another thing. We're eliminating curb cuts on Queen Street. There's 3 curb cuts there. We're making 1 curb cut. If people get together, they can eliminate 4 curb cut and generate 1. and you have more of a cohesive type of development versus these structures that were intended to be for residential years ago, and then they were converted to business and things like that.
Thank you.
You all set, Kristen? Mr. Sewell?
What is the closest town that allows something like this?
Most towns allow it, actually. I took a regulation from East Dartford, from Madison, Cheshire allows it, Clinton, East Hampton, the previous planner, I believe, was for East Hampton, and I got that regulation. Plainville, I actually, the photos that I provided the last time, one of those buildings, the white one, was in Plainville, so Plainville's allowing that. So most towns.
And in other areas of town, we do allow this?
Central business zone, you allow the second floor to have residential. You actually allow the residential, the entire building. Like we did it on Eden Avenue, we have a residential building there, and that's central business zone.
And in your professional opinion, what are the negative impacts to local houses and businesses?
Negative impacts? I don't see any negative impact. This brings life into the area, and actually helps the business. If you live upstairs, most likely you're going to shop in the stores that are downstairs. Give you an example, the Riverbend Plaza, there's 2 buildings there, there's 19 units, and there's different kind of users, starting from an insurance company, barber shop, liquor store, a smoke shop, nail salon. So somebody that lives upstairs on one of those buildings that qualifies the 1079 can easily go shopping there, and they can actually walk to the TJ Maxx shopping plaza, and things of that nature.
I wanted to commend you on your math, because I was doing the math and I came up with what you came up with for those numbers. I myself think this is a small request, and I think a lot of other towns are doing this, and I think we need to maintain our presence of being business-friendly. Again, small request, and for that favor, I will be voting yes.
Well, actually, Jamie, you shouldn't have said that, because we're in a public hearing right now. We're not in a business meeting, so you can't.
You have stated that on the record before.
No, you can't prejudice your position right now with an open public hearing.
I retract that from the record. I do think it's a small request, and I think it would be a wonderful thing for our town.
Okay. You all set?
Thank you, sir.
No other questions, I guess, from members?
I just want to add again that we have 20% for affordable housing, and quite a few people came the last time and spoke in favor.
Thanks, Ed. Let's open it up to members of the public.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Mike Riccio, 124 Andrews Street in Southington. I'm here actually speaking as a member of the Economic Strike Committee. I'm not speaking for the committee. I want to make that very, very clear. These are my opinions and not the opinions of the committee. And I also want to make it clear, because it was asked of me, I have no horse in this race. I don't own any of these properties. I don't intend to ever buy any of these properties. This is not personal for me. I'm just here doing what I think is right for the town. So a couple of things that I want to address that have come up since the last public hearing, and I'm going to kind of take these willy-nilly as I took notes during your comments. This type of use is being done all over the country. All over the country. I travel a lot for real estate, and it's being done everywhere. You know, everyone hates hearing about COVID and what it did to change the world, but the reality is it did. If you put COVID together with technology, it's wiped out office buildings everywhere, around the world actually, and the real estate community is struggling on what to do with it and how to handle it. And what we're seeing here is partly due to that to COVID. The other thing that I mentioned the last meeting, and not to get into repeating myself, but the healthcare industry has consolidated all of the medical office space that used to exist in all of these buildings. So, Mr. Bavino shrunk the zone, and what we're looking at are two very, very small corridors in our retail areas that will never, ever be touched by national commercial real estate entities. The traffic counts won't support it. So you won't get commercial restaurants going there. We're talking about dead zones. And in each zone, I can cite Play It Again or whatever that used to bring your stuff there on the Plainville line, they trade your sports clothes in or whatever. The place is hideous. It's a dump. I think it actually caught fire. And no offense to Peter, because he's cleaning the place up, but it's a shithole over there, excuse my language. But that corner has looked like garbage since I was a kid, and the only one that's ever done anything about it is sitting in front of you tonight. Now, you brought up taking the existing house, which I don't even think has 1,000 square foot footprint. I think it's probably more like 700 square feet or 800. And if you add 25%, let's go on the high side, let's say it's 900, 25%, he can add 225 square feet to that dump of a house that sits on the corner of that property. Is that what we're looking to encourage in the town of Southington? We have the town of Cheshire building beautiful developments next door, Rivercrest and E.G. Homes. And then you come to Southington and you got the biggest eyesore I've ever seen in our town, right on the corner. And we have someone here that's trying to fix it up and make it look nice. And when I sat in your seat, I was always a fan of stepped zoning. Well, if you take what's happening in Cheshire and you bring it over to Meriden Waterbury Road, what Mr. Bavino and Mr. DiClemente are proposing is exactly that, step zoning. It's what we should be encouraging. So let me just run through my notes here. As far as traffic counts go, if you guys were really concerned about the traffic that might be generated from 27 units, and I did the math, and Seb's right, it would be 27 units in the area that he's talking about, then we wouldn't be looking at, and what I actually think is a really nice 55 and over on Lazy Lane, changing it from an R20 zone to a 55 and over with 23 or 24 units. I mean, if you're concerned about traffic, then you shouldn't even be looking at that. That's going to dump all the traffic on Queen Street. And I love your thing. I think it's great. And I didn't come up for the public hearing. I didn't think it was appropriate. As to Mr. Perillo's comments, to fix it, you could gold plate the inside of those offices above retail. Gold plate them, and they'll never be occupied. And continuing on Lou's comments, I think, and I'm a fan of the Anthony properties that's proposed, and I'm a huge fan of the downtown property that hopefully will get developed at Factory Square. But before we worry about the stuff that hasn't been built yet, let's worry about what we have and get it cleaned up. There was a comment about the childhood home on Queen Street or Meriden Waterbury Road. I'm pretty familiar with both the areas. There might be one house that's occupied by someone who's lived there for 40 or 50 years. Maybe one. So if that's a concern. And from a builder's perspective, what are you going to do? You're going to rehab what was a single-family house, try to get a retailer to come in on the first floor. It's never, ever, ever going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So you have these houses that sit in this dead zone, and what do we want them to become? Because they're not going to be a house. Nobody wants to live on Queen Street or Meriden Waterbury Road. They're not going to be retail. They're going to be what Mr. DiClemente has sitting on the corner, an empty, gross, run-down structure. I think Mr. Bavino has touched architecturally on what these things will look like. They gave examples. If you've never been to Neil's Donuts in Wallingford, you should try it. The donuts are amazing. That's a beautiful property on a corner. I actually think the balconies make it look more appealing. I don't think they're in this proposal. As far as kids go, you guys can Google, and it's right here in the state of Connecticut. We looked at it down in West Haven in a project that we're working on. The argument that kids want to live, or parents want to raise their kids in this type of property, there's zero impact. It's been all, the studies are all done. There's zero impact to the schools, none. You're going to get young professionals or retired people living in these types of units. And just Google it. There's dozens of studies right here in Connecticut. And I'll end with my affordable comment that I made last time, but in a little different light, and that is, with regard to this is being proposed so that we can see redevelopment. When you guys stick 20% affordable, you're going against the tide as far as getting these things back on the tax rolls and getting them to be productive taxpayers. Before you guys continue down the road of asking for affordable housing units in all these subdivisions, I would bring in the developers of the projects that you've already approved and ask them how easy it is to sell an affordable housing unit in the state of Connecticut. It is nearly impossible. Nearly impossible. And you can call the developers over at Hillcrest as a good example. They haven't been able to sell those affordable housing units for years because of the parameters that the state of Connecticut puts on them. Most people don't qualify. So that's just my opinion on the affordable component. I thank you for your time. I would encourage you to support this, and I think there's plenty of steps involved so you guys can get projects that you and the town of Southington would be proud to have. Thank you.
Mike, could I just ask you to clarify a couple of things that I see that, in my mind, are a little bit conflicting with each other?
Sure.
One of the things you said was that affordable units are not sellable. So by virtue of that, if I were to apply that to this proposal, then 20% or not minimal, no less than 1 unit per each development would be unsellable, right?
Right.
So those are going to sit vacant. You also said that no one wants to live on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike or Queen Street. So why would it be different
In a single-family house.
in this
In a single-family house.
So I appreciate the clarification. If we don't have businesses in these locations now, and if you drive up and down, you know as well as I do, you drive up and down Meriden Waterbury Turnpike, you drive up and down Queen Street, there are vacant storefronts.
Mm-hmm.
How would this change that landscape?
Because if you look at what Peter's proposing as an example, it creates the village effect. And what the village effect gets you is village shops that come downstairs, coffee, liquor, dry cleaner, anything that's not affected by the internet, anything that's not going to get delivered by Amazon. If there's people living up and around, and especially on that corner, because of what's happening over in Cheshire, you're going to get that type of retail on the first floor. But it's got to be the village effect, like that example of Neil's Donuts, or go down by the old airport in Madison. Great example. What's happening down there? It's a village effect. So you get people. Now, Seb's limited it to 2 stories. I would have gone to 3. That example that they gave in Wallingford or down in Madison, you're going to get a little bit more density that would allow you it would allow you to have the more successful retail on the first floor. But it's the village effect. We have vacant storefronts in rundown old shopping centers. Or we have vacant storefronts in a 2-story building where there's retail on the first floor and empty offices upstairs. That's where we have vacant retail. There's no vacant retail from Outback Plaza down to Oak Hill Cemetery. I don't know of any vacant retail there. There's one. There's a bank. The old Citizens National Bank is vacant, and the only reason that's vacant is because there's so many restrictions on the plaza that's owned by the same owner that almost nothing he can put in there because of the restriction that he agreed to when he built Panera Bread and the cell phone store and the healthcare. So
So let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, that the property that Mr. DiClemente spoke of in the corner of Clark and Meriden Waterbury Turnpike, which again, this commission has opined on and made approval in at least 2 different occasions, possibly 3, within the last 5 years, if my math is correct. Let's just say that this type of a proposal is one that the commission could agree to. But would that mean, if you were sitting in our seat, because you have sat here, right? Would that mean that we should apply that same standard in this wide berth of an area? And how would you respond to the comment made by Mr. Perillo that there's other parts of the town that maybe this should apply to that aren't included here?
well, I don't think it's a wide berth from River Street to the Plainville line. I mean, not even all the buildings apply. And the section of Meriden Waterbury Road is so small. I mean, you could throw a baseball with a good arm from one end to the other. It's not a wide berth. So I don't agree with that statement, Bob. And you know, I'm not going to speak for Louis. I don't always agree with Louis, and I are great friends and we get along well, economic development. I don't always agree with everything he says. And I don't think he was speaking for the commission. I want to put that on the record also. But I said in the last meeting, I think this should apply to the building on West Street. What's that guy going to do with his second floor? It's been vacant for 10 years. What's he supposed to do? What do you want to see on Peter's property? Because other things that he's brought before you, if they were viable commercially, financially, you know, go to a bank and get financing, it'd be built already. That's why he's here. It's a no to low traffic. You can't get trucks under the bridge, and commercial traffic off of 84 isn't going to go under that bridge. Just not happening. That's why Ralph Campichero's property's been for sale for 10 years. For sale sign's been there. Go down the street. What's his name? Greg Ali's property's been for sale for 15 years. It's a dead zone. But you're not going to get single-family houses. What do you guys want to see there? I think that's the question you have to ask yourselves. What do you want to see there?
Okay. Just one other thing that I'm just curious to, because I know you pretty well, right? And I feel like I do anyways. We always hear about overdevelopment. It is a constant theme that you hear from people around town who aren't here, right? You go out there, they're going to tell you, you guys are approving everything, overdevelopment, you do whatever developers want to do. How would you respond to that?
I would respond that show me a town that has done more for land preservation in the state of Connecticut than the town of Southington. And I can tell you that because I championed it. I was here for the very first parcel in the very first committee, and it was Crescent Lake. It's a long time ago. And I could go parcel by parcel by parcel of doors personally, and I'm not here to toot my own horn, that I knocked on to say, please save your land from development. And we got them. And my 2 biggest, proudest moments were when we got Hawks Landing and Southington Country Club. And the fish property on East, I mean, I can go down the line. Novik's Orchard, knocked on their door. Fish property hounded them. Holmquist on corner of East Street hounded that family, personally me, for years until they all caved in. And we as a community should be proud of that because we paid for all that open space. We had a little bit of help from the state.
Yep.
I know the state bought Lewis Farms up on Flanders Road. That's a farming preservation, but that's my answer.
Okay.
And should we stop buying open space? No. Nope. We shouldn't. We should keep buying it.
Yeah.
But if you want to stop development, you better own it. Because you can't say, I don't want it in my backyard unless you're willing to get your checkbook out.
Absolutely right.
That's
Okay.
my answer.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Regina? I think this is the most we've heard from you ever. Today's your day.
I wasn't planning on this part, but Anyone that says we do
Let's-
not.
let's get your
Oh,
name and
Regina
address again.
Coviello,
Okay, thank you.
12 Beecher Street, again. Anyone that says we don't need affordable housing in Southington isn't looking at reality. Okay, there are many people in this town that are bordering on losing their homes, whether it's elderly, younger people. People don't realize people go through consequences. Okay, there's things that happen in their lives that they're not expecting to. A death of a husband. Okay, now there's one income. They can lose it all. We need affordable housing. We need more affordable housing. Simple as that. If you say we don't, I've lived here 59 now, just this weekend. 59 years, born and raised here. We need more for when a single person can't get an apartment in this town but can work here. That's ridiculous. They have to go to a city to live. That's ridiculous. Okay, there are 2-3 generations that have to live together to afford it. So we need affordable housing. If this can help, then that is great. Thank you.
Don't look a day over 57. I'm 58 too, so just so everybody knows, I'll throw that out there. Anyone else who'd like to speak either for or against this application at this time? Seeing none, Sev, this is where you close it out. Because I think after this, we're going to close the public hearing on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to some of the comments, I want to give you some examples. I have 2 employees. I have more employees, but 2 of them, they're very young. One just graduated. He's moving out of the house from his father's place, his family home, and he needs a place to stay. So that would be one of the clients for this type of development. The other employee is recently engaged, also recently graduated, recently engaged. They need a place, 2 people. They're going to use this kind of a location because it's going to be affordable. Regardless if it's affordable, restricted or not, they're going to use this kind of location because it's convenient to the highways and it's also more affordable. These units will not be for sale. There was a question about, oh, they're going to go empty. These will not be for sale. These are for rental. These are not meant to be for sale. You do the development downstairs and you have the second floor for rental. We started this project, but doesn't mean that the commission later on cannot expand it. If you feel that's a good idea, you can expand it. And we'll see how it goes. And this is trying something that I believe it's going to work. We've done other things in this town. We did it on West Street. We did a mixed use there. It used to be zone industrial. We came in, the commission agreed with us. We did a mixed use. Look what's happening on West Street from the exit ramp up to Curtis Street. Peter applied for a zone change. The commission graciously approved the zone change for a portion of his property. That's all he applied for. He didn't do the previous proposal in front of you. This is the first time he comes forward with something that he wants to build on this. This is not overdevelopment. This is redevelopment of existing structures. So it's not new development. And it's actually a good thing for the environment because you're taking an existing property and reutilize it versus having to go and get another piece of property and build on it. Those are the comments I want to make. Hope the commission looks at it the way we're looking at it and grant an approval.
They're not making new land, Sev, right?
That's right. And we will
There's no new land that's being churned out or manufactured anywhere.
And we will be coming back, again, as I said, we need a zone change and we need a special permit to make anything happen.
And just to make sure that I understand and we're all the cards on the table here, the plans that you showed us for 2 potential developments aren't really formal plans at this point. They're just schematic designs of what might happen.
That's right. And that's for you to look at it and see what we see in terms of potential. That's the reason I did it. because there was a question, what can you do here, what can you do there? And also went and counted the number of properties that possibly we could do something and counted the potential for units.
Got it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the applicant? Is there any objection from anybody here to closing this public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I had a few questions for Mr. Ricchio. Was it too late to ask him a few?
Kind of. I mean, it's kind of out of the flow of process, Jamie, to be honest.
I don't think you gave us an opportunity to.
I thought I did. I thought I asked everybody.
I don't think so.
Okay. So you have an objection to closing the public hearing?
I'd like to ask a few questions to Mr. Ricchio.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Do you own any properties on this map that this would be, you'd be affected by?
I don't, what map is that?
Floating zone area map 1 and 2 that Seth had given us?
No.
No. So you won't financially benefit from this, you personally, if we were to approve this?
No.
Okay. You were a past planning and zoning commissioner. What are the negative impacts that you would see if we ultimately approve this?
You know, that was asked to Sev earlier. I really don't see any. I mean, you know, I appreciate Bob's, and I understand the frustration that you guys deal with, because people do hit you all the time for overdevelopment, but you're on streets that are already developed, and this is redevelopment. So you're going to take a you know, a dumpy property and you're going to redo it. Or you're going to take an existing property that has retail and office above it, you know, a shopping center, let's call it that, and you're going to repurpose the second floor. So I really don't see, I see a benefit, because those properties right now are they're not being utilized on the second floor. And there's people that could be living, you know, so it's empty. If you got people in there, you're going to be able to tax their automobiles. If they have a home office, you're going to be able to tax their computers and their desks and what have you. So right now, it's just dead space.
So if I understand you correctly, you don't think there'll be any negative impacts to local businesses or any housing nearby?
No, zero.
Okay. Last question I have for you is, if you were a property owner, would you have a problem putting housing above one of your businesses and be afraid that one of the businesses would have a problem with someone living above?
Well, that's all handled, you know, from a property management perspective. So it depends on what comes first, you know, the chicken or the egg. So if the retail's first and you put residential above, the residential knows that the retail was there first, and vice versa. So
So if you own one of these properties, you wouldn't have a problem with that?
no, I mean, I would plan ahead. If there was going to be a restaurant on the first floor, there would have to be, you know, special sheetrock done. There would have to be gaps that were all filled so you don't get the odor. That's the biggest problem when you have residential above retail, is odor. So
And how many years were you on Planning and Zoning Commission in the past?
8.
8? I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions of Mr. Ricchio from any other member of the commission? Thanks, Mike. Sev, anything else? You could just shake your head no. That's fine.
I want to get to the microphone.
Yeah,
No, Mr. Chairman.
okay. Is there any objection from any member of the commission to closing the public hearing at this time? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed on that proposal. Moving on to item D on the public hearing agenda. Prior to doing that, let's take a 5-minute break, bathroom break for folks. Right now it is, well, that clock is wrong, but it is 9:20, so let's reconvene at 9:25, please. All set? Let's move on to item 9D, proposed zoning text amendment for revisions to section 1 through 8, 10, and 11 of the zoning regulations concerning numerous waivers, statutory compliance, and allowed use modifications. This is zone amendment number 619. Mr. LaValle, you want to go through some of these, please?
Sure, yeah, I'll hit on the high points. So Planning Department staff, in coordination with Planning and Zoning Commission, Engineering Department, Economic Development, have drafted a proposed change to sections, as you mentioned, regarding numerous waivers, statutory compliance, and allowed use modifications to align with the POCD. An area of particular focus was the open space language. Changes were made to lot size requirements and setbacks to allow for greater flexibility in developments, as well as introducing an increase in the required set-aside for preserved area. The proposal also includes a new density bonus for providing additional open space over what is required. For every 5% increase in dedicated open space, you get an additional lot. The commission will still have the choice between allowing a conventional layout or an open space design based upon what makes the most sense for the area. An avenue for requiring more quality open space has also been introduced to avoid unusable strips of land in stormwater ponds that did not add any value under the current regs. So some of the high points are simplifying procedures, like allowing the ZEO to sign off for chickens, food trucks, and industrial and business, car repair, which currently need a special exception through Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's definitely more business-friendly. Some of the statutory changes, we're removing some of the waivers that were previously provided that didn't meet the statute, including requirement for parking and buffers. There's a new requirement statutorily that would allow redevelopment of nursing homes under public hearing. As I mentioned, the open space does allow for greater flexibility with smaller lots. The yield plan no longer is a separate formula. It's based on the subdivision lots, so conventional number of lots, and then above that, you can get additional lots if there's the 5% increase. Now the Conservation Commission has review over the disposition of the open space in terms of where it is positioned on the plan. And we have limited smoke shops to B zone and not central business zone, so they won't be allowed downtown any longer. So
Okay,
those are the
okay.
high points.
Okay. So again, members of the commission and members of the public, this was something that's been worked on with the members of this commission and staff over the last several months to try to codify some statutory requirements and also make some minor process improvements, if you will, particularly with regards to the application for food trucks and chickens, which under current regulation is done via the Zoning Board of Appeals. This moves that to a statutory, or I'm sorry, to a staff administrative review level. Same restrictions apply, however, it's not done by ZBA, it's done by staffing level, which probably will have the intended effect of clearing that up a little bit quicker and easier than it has been in the past for applicants that may be going that route. So I don't know if there's any member of the commission who have any questions or any comment they want to make about this proposed text amendment change.
You said it.
Caleb.
Thank you. So I just had three questions I had. 1.C.4, the chickens one. So is this going to be an annual permit that's going to be allowed? The reason why I ask it is, professionally speaking, we do sometimes see that the conditions of these chicken enclosures can deteriorate from year to year. And if there's no additional enforcement piece to that, what's the municipality's ability to stop that from happening further into years? Do you follow where I'm going with this?
Sure, yeah, through the chair, I think, number one, you could condition the zoning permit for it, and then you could also consider it a blight if there was a neighbor complaint or if you can see it from the street. So it would certainly be addressed a number of ways.
Perfect.
Could be addressed a number of ways,
Okay.
based on complaints.
As long as it's out in the universe and we're kind of thinking
Yeah,
about it.
same, as the chair mentioned, same regulations, just different way of approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second one, 2.B.2.B, the smoke shops. Was there any consideration of separation distances, minimum separation distances between these types of establishments?
So if I can answer that one, the proposal on the smoke shops is to remove those or prohibit those from being allowed in the downtown district. Nothing else changes. I mean, we have one there that's there now. That one would continue to be able to operate as a smoke shop. But once that were to close, we would not allow any other smoke shops in the downtown district, nor would we allow anyone else to apply to be a smoke shop in the downtown district. And the intent there is to make that area of town a family-friendly part of town, if you will.
So I would like to consider, or everybody to consider, the thought of more of a town-wide view of smoke shops as it's related to public health and the safety of the community. And I don't know, and I don't have any documentation about this, but, you know, right now, we can have 5 smoke shops within 3 plazas. And there's no way to stop that besides the market, you know, favoring one and not the others. So my hope would be to consider, either now or at a later point, is to discuss some way to ensure that there are fewer of these types of establishments, and almost to look at it like how alcohol permits are approved. There's separation distances. There's a number of permits that are allowed per municipality. So I'll just leave it out to you guys to kind of think about.
Yeah, I mean, I, as one member of the commission, I'm open to having that conversation, Caleb, and, you know, to be candid about it, personally, I would vote for an outright townwide ban on smoke shops. I don't think we're quite there yet. I think that we need to do a little bit more research on something like that, but I'm open to having that conversation moving forward,
Thank you.
if you will, yeah.
Last one I
Yep.
had was, and I didn't understand it, 4.G.5.9, decorative sculptures. Is there any review for the size or the nature of the, I mean, this could, a decorative statue, it could be, you know, a little cherub or something like that, or it could be the Statue of Liberty. So, I mean, to put perspective into play. So is there any, and I didn't see it here, and that's why I'm asking the question. Can we, is it done by zoning permit, or is it as of right to install something like that?
Well, again, through the chair, this is eliminating the right to waive it. So as it is, there's a certain restaurant in town that had a fountain in the front yard, and we said, is that considered a structure? Because it would have to meet the setbacks. Well, sometimes it's considered artwork and not a structure. So it gets a little tricky on how you define those. This was more to be in line with the statutes that you can't really waive such things. It's either you allow them or you don't. So again, we could explore that a little more. Whether you think it's an issue or you're concerned whether the fall zone would affect the sidewalk. That's the type of things we look at. And I think we could justify a denial based on that, safety-wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, as far as like line of sight would be concerned if it was a
Same.
megalith?
Same, absolutely. Yeah, we look at that all the time.
Okay.
Even trees. There's a new development that went in with, they planted a tree in the sight line. There's easements that the town requires on corners that you can't put anything within those sight line triangles.
Good. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, any, Rob?
Yeah, no, I just want to comment that I appreciate the time and energy that went into this. I know it's been months in the working, and I like the fact that a lot of things are streamlined and more efficient. So it should help you, it should help us, and it should help, you know, the resident of the town. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this application.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Yeah, Kristen, go ahead.
Under section 1, the second item, I think it's 1C 3D. Can you clarify what that means?
Sure. You want me to take that, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so that's the ground mount solar in residential zones.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I didn't pull it up, but, so the intent here, Kristen, is that, as many on the commission will recall, we had an application on an R 2025, and when we adopted the ground-mounted solar regulation, I think it was in 2017 or so, I think we're the first community to adopt that as a regulation in our zoning, but I don't think that we had a full understanding of what that would mean in our 2025 zone, given the density of those zones. So what we talked about doing was prohibiting ground-mounted solar in a zone of that size or less, which would be the R12s.
Okay, so this is saying it's not allowed in those.
It's saying that it's prohibited, ground-mounted solars would be prohibited in our 12 and 2025 zone.
But, again, Mr. Chairman, we don't regulate roof-mounted, so if they
Yeah.
wanted to go with, clean energy, they could do it on the roof of their garage or their house, or that type of thing.
And then I have a question under section 6, the first one, 6B3. Can we just get clarity?
Again, Mr. Chairman, anytime you see the word waiver, that really, the
Yeah.
commission's not really allowed to do waivers. Either you seek a variance or not. You don't really have the right to do that. So regardless of what the language is after that word, it's more about the word than the language that follows it.
So I guess I'm just confused. So like, say if you have a place of worship and they have 250 parishioners of the worship, they're not going to be held to any sort of standard in terms of parking?
I think typically what they look at in these examples is if there's a shared parking opportunity, they look for that because it's flashy, if you will, that it's required. It's only, say, on weekends or certain times. So shared parking agreements work well, so you can reduce the footprint of the development there. That's typically what we look to do.
So I guess my question is, in the event that a place of worship was going to have some sort of a large event that yielded more than what they normally have, would it then become like a public safety thing because they're?
We do have a new form that we have people fill out. It's a special event form. We do it for, say, flea markets or special events outside of, let's see, like weddings at houses, those are fine. But if you expect an issue like that, then all the departments, all the land use, public safety departments have to sign off on it, so they're aware of it. And if they're required to hire an officer for traffic safety, they will. It's required. Typically, there's other restrictions put on it for public safety.
But so, and then, because I know that there are some places of worship that do have thousands of square feet available to them, but they only have, is it so many seats for parishioners? So if they hold an event at this rather large establishment, they would have to come before you because they would be exceeding the number of people? Like if they were gonna have a big event?
If we know about it, if they ask us, we won't go looking for it. But it would typically be advertised, so, we'd be aware of it and not, to overreach. But a lot of times they ask, which is great, say, hey, what do you think about this? We have downtown, there's some summer camps that come before us every year. We don't have problems, but typically if they have a requirement for tents and it's an over, I think, 200 square feet for a tent, that's the trigger for building and fire to take a look at it. So then we'd get involved to see if they need any zoning, temporary event.
I was just thinking of like when these places of worship exceed their parking and then they're parking in busy streets, that can cause like main street
Yeah, that's what we
roads.
look out for. A lot of times there's shuttles too, that are provided, and that's something we try and promote, to say, hey, there's a satellite lot here, can you shuttle people?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, we'll open it up to members of the public. If there's anyone who would like to speak to these proposed changes, please come up, state your name and your address at the podium. Please share your thoughts. Going twice. Seeing none, is there any objection from members of the commission to closing the public hearing on this item? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moved on to item 9E. John Nick Enterprise LLC, special permit application for a parent-grandparent apartment property located at 14 Lady Slipper Lane, zoned in an R40. This is SPU 704. Sir.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Richard Bresky, owner of John Nick Enterprises, located at 11 Princess Pine Path, Southington, Connecticut. I'm representing Don and Lisa Connolly, who are residing at the 14 Lady Slipper Lane, which we're going to be talking about tonight. I seek tonight for the approval to construct an in-law apartment located at the 14 Lady Slipper Lane. This in-law apartment will conform to all zoning, health, and building regulations. We have received notifications from all these departments with their compliance already approved. You have the plans in front of you. We're looking to put a 608 square foot in-law apartment on this dwelling. We're conforming to the 40% rule, which is around 1,530 square feet, which gives us around 614 square feet of latitude. So we're just falling inside of the actual regulation. It'll be attached to the rear of the property within the building lines of the property. We don't have to make any changements to septic systems, or they already have a 5-bedroom compliance with the original construction of the house, and we're not changing that. Same thing with the number of bathrooms, that doesn't change. All we're really seeking to do is to approve the additional kitchen, which has never been approved. The occupants there right now, it's a husband and wife. They are looking to reside, their parents have passed away. They looking to reside into the actual in-law apartment section, move the kids over to the main dwelling. They're going to sell the house off to them, reside there in between. They have a property in Florida. And any questions?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions of the applicant from members of the commission? Seeing none, all right. We're going to open it up to members of the public. Any member of the public like to opine, share your thoughts on this application with the commission? Going twice. Seeing none. Anything else to add, sir? You could just say no from your seat. I'm good. Okay. All right. Any objection to closing the public hearing on that application? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moving into the business meeting, item 10A, Hoist Real Estate LLC petition to change zoning district boundary from R2025 to an arch. Also includes a change from I-2 to R2025 for access strip at 65 Toronto Drive. Property located at 322 Lazy Lane. This is zone change 579. I'm going to remind members of the commission that this is only on the zone change. This is not on the overall proposal. This is the first step that's required to be taken in order to take the proposal up. So this is to convert that into what we have as an overlay zone, which is the arch zone. So looking for a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve ZC 579.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Britton with a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Dave, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Coles?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sewell?
Abstain.
Commissioner Gaida?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Pulowski?
Yes.
And Chair Hammerson.
Hammer says a yes, motion passes 6-0. Item number 10B, Hoist Real Estate LLC, special permit application to construct an age-restricted housing development. Property located at 322 Lazy Lane. This is our 2025 SPU 707.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve SPU 707.
Is this where the water department stuff comes in, or is that the site plan? A site plan, right? Okay. So we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Woloski. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Chaplinsky with a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Coles?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sewell?
Abstain.
Commissioner Gaida?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Woloski?
Yes.
Chair Hammersley?
Hammersley, yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 10C, Hoist Real Estate LLC site plan application for proposed 24, actually 23 units, I think it is, right?
It is 23 units.
23 units of age-restricted homes, property located at 322 Lazy Lane, zoned R2025, SPR 1891. Given the previous presentation, Mr. Judas, I anticipate a abbreviated presentation here.
Basically, very abbreviated. We're proposing 23 units. As I spoke in the public hearing, stormwater management, we've got a good system, public water, public sewer. We have some outstanding comments from the water department that we are in agreement. We will definitely revise the plans to address their concerns, and I believe that will then address the fire department's concerns as well. So if the commission were comfortable, we'd be happy to stipulate those comments as part of any motion that you would make tonight.
Okay.
Any
Any questions to the applicant? Looking for a sidewalk waiver here?
Yes,
Pre-
yes,
or
sir.
earlier?
75 feet of frontage,
Right.
we're proposing a waiver, yes.
Understood, okay.
Can I ask
Caleb?
a question of us, or, let me ask the question, you tell me if I can answer it.
Uh-huh.
The sidewalk waiver, could that, did we pass the payment in lieu of?
We did.
Would that be applicable to this?
It could be, correct?
Yeah, I believe he'd have to come back and revise the site plan, showing them off of it, and then you can vote for
Could
the
we,
waiver.
I mean, could we
So-
offer the fee?
So that would
below?
require us to deny the sidewalk waiver. I'm thinking out
You may be
loud.
able to, yeah.
Deny the sidewalk waiver and then have you come back with a plan to do a payment in lieu of. Am I right?
Let's just hear him out for a
Okay.
minute.
Go.
Quick question, is the fee in lieu of, has that regulation been enacted? Is that an official regulation?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't think the applicant would be objectionable to offering the fee in lieu of in exchange for this, to not construct the sidewalk. I don't know, I haven't read the regulations, so I don't know exactly how to present it. But my understanding is that we request to not construct the sidewalk, but to pay the fee for the cost of the sidewalk into the fund.
You might be getting a little bit ahead of yourself because I believe, as I stated earlier, that we have to deny the sidewalk waiver. So it would have to be required in order for him to have to make a payment in lieu of, right?
I'd have to pull the reg, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to request a sidewalk waiver. We'll see what you guys decide to do, and then we'll react after that.
Okay.
All right?
That's what I think has to happen,
Okay.
Steve.
Let's-
You might get your waiver and then you don't have to make any payment in lieu
I'm
of,
crossing my
right?
fingers, yeah.
Okay, so, but that's part of this.
Right.
Do you understand, Caleb?
Yes.
You clear on?
Okay.
It might be a little silly, but it might not be, who knows, you know?
That's okay. Where the chips fall, we will,
I appreciate the
Go that route.
flexibility, I'll say that, right?
we're learning
Okay.
the new reg.
Any other questions to the applicant from members of the commission?
So, I don't know if I'm going
Kristen,
to
go.
speak out of turn, but the engineering department said that the proposed sanitary sewer shall be privately owned and maintained by the association. So I know our paper says public, but the engineering department
So,
said.
yeah, I guess the public reference is the fact that it's not a septic system. So the sewers discharge to a public system in Lazy Lane. But the pipes on our site will be privately owned and maintained.
Right.
I don't know if we have to specify that, though, when we.
It was, Mr. Chairman, it was an engineering comment of which they acknowledged that, so.
So it's on the
my
record?
point, it's in the record,
Okay.
so I'm good with that.
So when they go with their plans to the building department, engineering will look at those and make sure that that's the case.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions to the applicant? Seeing none? You set?
We're good.
You're good, okay. All right, so I'm looking for a motion on this. Well, I guess first we have to do the sidewalk waiver, so we need a motion on a sidewalk waiver. If there is a motion to provide a sidewalk waiver, I guess, first.
I'll make a motion for a sidewalk waiver for SPR 1891.
Okay, so we have a motion to waive the sidewalk requirement. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Chaplinsky with a second on that motion. Is there any discussion? So just to clarify, a vote in the affirmative, a vote yes, would be a vote to waive the requirement. A vote no would be a vote to not waive the requirement. 2/3 majority is required on this per our regulation in order for that waiver to be granted. So that would mean out of 7, 5 of us would have to vote in favor of the waiver. Rob?
Chairman, and a yes would mean a waiver means payment in lieu of.
No.
No. Got it.
Because I believe for the payment in lieu of to kick in, there has to be a requirement for a sidewalk. So he's asked for a waiver. If we give them a waiver, they don't have to put the sidewalk in. Therefore, there's no payment in lieu of, because he doesn't have to put the sidewalk in.
And if we say no, deny it, then he's got to put the sidewalk in, and then he can ask for lieu of.
He has the option to ask for a payment in lieu of at that point, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Which I think comes back to this commission, if I'm,
And it has to, they have to show on the plans. I don't think they show now, right?
No, they don't.
Yeah, so you have to come back with them on the plan, and then you.
ask for, right.
Yeah.
So that, does that clarify the muddy water for you?
We're going to find out.
Caleb, do you have something?
So, and it sounds like the applicant was open to that, and this is just a procedural thing to go through.
It sounded like I don't want to speak for you, Steve.
I don't
Go ahead.
actually know the procedure in town.
Actually, hold on a second, because I don't know that actually there's a motion out here. It's
Yeah, I
not proper
can't.
for you to
I'll
talk.
keep-
So I think that the applicant indicated that they're open to a payment in lieu of if they're required to put a sidewalk in. But the ultimate decision of whether we grant that payment in lieu of to a sidewalk waiver resides with us. Ultimately, he would just have to come back and ask for it. So what we do at that point, I think that that's just a simple majority in order to grant them the payment in lieu of. It's not a 2/3, which is required for the waiver.
And given
Very
the,
good.
and given the timeframe of the applicant, do we have enough time? Because we only have a meeting in January.
Well, he's got 30 days to file a Mylar, or is it 60 days to file a Mylar, Dave?
Yeah, 265-day extension, or
Nope.
165-day extension.
Yeah,
No
we're
no
talk-
Milars filed.
Oh, there's no, if it's a subdivision.
Oh, it's a subdivision, okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about possibly procedurally 30 days.
We could come back at any point. and
Yeah,
ask
so
for that.
they could ostensibly come back at the first week, our next meeting, the first week of January, and say, we want to ask for a payment in lieu of, and we could take it up. No one's going to be digging ground, I would assume, in the middle of December and in January.
Right.
Certainly not to put the sidewalk in on a proposed subdivision, so.
That's usually the
The
last
sequence of
thing
the
that goes in.
construction does not afford that luxury, if you will, right? All right? Is everyone clear? Okay, again, a vote in the affirmative means you are voting to give a waiver. A vote no means that you're not willing to give a waiver. 2/3 is needed, all right? Please call the roll, Dave.
Commissioner Coles?
No.
Commissioner Britton?
No.
Commissioner Sewell?
Abstain.
Commissioner Chaplinsky?
No.
Commissioner Wallowski?
Yes.
Chair Hammersley?
You call Commissioner Gaida?
Commissioner Gaida is on there. Go ahead.
No.
Hammersley's a no. Motion fails 1 to
So, Mr.
5.
Chairman,
Yeah.
I was thinking ahead, so I apologize for missing you, but the site plan should probably be tabled because it doesn't show the sidewalk on it. right? So if you
We will,
prove this.
we will consent to adding the
All right.
sidewalks.
Could we just stipulate that a
Yeah, you can
sidewalk be
stipulate.
added to that?
Okay,
Right?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Right? Is that okay?
okay, yep.
Thank you.
I think we've had an open discussion about it, so. Okay, so again, we're back on the site plan application. The waiver has been denied. Looking for a motion on this application.
Right, I'll make a motion to approve SPR 1891 with the stipulation that all water department and fire department concerns are addressed.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Britton with a second. Is there any discussion? Okay.
Did,
Um,
part of the discussion, did we need to add the stipulation for the sidewalk? Not to,
Yes.
we need to
Yeah,
put
we,
that on the
we,
record?
yeah, so could we open your motion? Are you opening your motion or revising your
Yes.
motion to include the inclusion of a sidewalk on the plan?
Yes.
You-
I'll
Just say
change
it.
my motion to include the sidewalk as shown on the plan.
Okay, so we have agreeable to that? Okay. So we have a, thanks, Caleb. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Coles?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sewell?
Abstain.
Commissioner Gaida?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Walowski?
Yes.
Chair Hammers?
Hammers is a yes, motion carries 6-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll-
Thank
we'll-
you.
We'll see you in a month.
For your time and consideration. I know it's been a long night. So.
I appreciate it. Okay. Moving on to item 10D, proposed zoning text amendment for revisions to section 4 of the zoning regulations, special zones. The proposal includes adding section 4I titled Special Design Mixed Use Zone to provide retail, service, residential, and professional office uses in locations close to limited access highways or arterial roads in a manner which ensures public safety and compatibility with surrounding areas. This is Zone Amendment 618. Commissioner Walowski.
I make a motion to table ZA 618.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
What was outstanding that we need to?
I think that there's a procedural issue we need to clarify.
Fair enough.
All right? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Second, or I'm sorry, oppose? Motion, okay, motion carries. On to item 10E, proposed zoning text amendment for revisions to section 1 through 8, 10, and 11 of the zoning regulations concerning numerous waivers, statutory compliance, and allowed use modifications. This is zone amendment 619. Commissioner Walowski?
I'll make a motion to approve ZA 619.
I'll second.
We have a second? Okay. It's getting late, folks. My voice is going to go. But we have a motion and a second. That might be a good thing, right? Is there any discussion? Anyone? I'll just say that I appreciate the staff's time and effort. This started with Jeremy, and Dave picked up the ball when he left, but it's been a seamless transition, and I appreciate everyone's time and effort in putting these together, and I think it makes those regulations better than they are beforehand. I think we do need to include, Dave, a effective date.
Sure.
So what's
15
the
days
suggestion?
after.
What's sorry?
15 days after the vote. So,
So you want to just do it for January 1, just to make it easy?
yeah.
Does that make sense? Is that agreeable to you as the motion maker, if you will?
That's fine.
Okay, and Rob, you okay with that?
like
As a
rounding pennies
second
up to a dollar.
of the motion maker? Okay. So we have a motion and a second, again, to make this effective on these changes effective on January 1 of 2025. No further discussion. Please call the roll, please.
Commissioner Coles?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sewell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaida?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Walowski?
Yes.
And Chair Hammers.
Hammers is a yes, 7-0, motion carries. Item 10F, John Nick Enterprises LLC special permit application for a parent-grandparent apartment, property located at 14 Lady Slipper Lane. This is owned R40 SPU 708. Commissioner Wallowski?
I'll make a motion to approve SPU 708.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Can I make
Which-
a comment?
Yeah, in a second. Commissioner Chaplinsky seconded it. Commissioner Gaida,
I'm sorry.
you don't need to apologize. This is just the proper time to make whatever comment you want.
Do we have to say pending approval from the health department? Because on our paper, it says health department approval pending. I don't know what's outstanding in that area.
I will adjust my motion to include pending approval of the health department.
Let me ask this, though, of staff. Is that necessary, or is that going to happen anyways?
It has to happen through the zoning permit process, but I mean, it's clean, it's a good question. But we will hold the zoning permit until we get that response.
Do you still want the stipulation in there?
I think we should have it.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
doesn't
We
hurt
could-
to
We could
have
do
it.
it. Okay, you amend your,
I already did. It's,
you okay?
I'm okay with it.
Okay. So the motioner and the seconder are good with that suggestion. Thank you, Commissioner Gaida, for that. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, can we call the roll, please?
Commissioner Coles?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Sewell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaida?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Wallowski?
yes.
And Chair Hammerson.
Hammers is yes, motion carries 7-0. Item 10G, Relax LLC, site plan application for proposed 9,000 square foot accessory building for storage. Property located at 702 Curtis Street, zoned in I2, SPR 1892. The applicant has requested a tabling on this. Could we get a motion to that effect?
I'll make a
Commissioner Wallowski?
motion to table SPR 1892.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gaida with a second. She spoke up, Rob, so.
Listen, I can give it to her.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Administrative items? Dave, anything?
Yes, just to say that at Stop and Shop, that Clink, which is the can redemption storage unit, they did agree to move it to the back of the site, so we'll be moving forward with the approval.
Okay. Is there any new applications on item number 12?
No.
Seeing none? Okay, in a moment, we'll look for a motion to adjourn, but I want to wish everybody a happy holiday, and we'll see you, a happy new year and all that.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
In reference to ZA 618, what was the procedural issue that we need?
You're out of order, so we're not going to take that up right now.
One more time?
I said you're out of order. We're not going to take that up right now. So we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?